I call to order the June 25th, 2020 regular action meeting of the Board of Education of Hinsdale Township High School District 86. We are meeting in the Hinsdale Central High School cafeteria and virtually via live stream. The time is 5:34 p.m. For the duration of Phase 3, which as I understand it expires tomorrow, which prohibits gatherings of more than 10 individuals, community members will be able to experience or participate in board meetings virtually. Some Board of Education members are participating in the meeting in person, while others are taking part virtually. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Member Camden.
Here.
Member Cheval.
Here.
Member Hirschman. Here. Member Hanson. Here. Member Held.
Here.
Member Pollock. Member Turek.
Here. We have a quorum. We can proceed. The board will adjourn to closed session to discuss collective bargaining and deliberations concerning salaries for one or more classes of employees. May I have a motion to adjourn to close for discussion of the above exceptions?
So moved.
Second. Motion held, second. Cheval. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Member Camden.
Aye.
Member Cheval.
Aye.
Member Hirschman.
Aye.
I'm sorry. Member Hanson.
Aye.
Member Held.
Aye.
Member Turek.
Aye. The ayes have it. Motion carries 6-0. The meeting will resume an open session at approximately 6 o'clock p.m. The board will take action following the closed session. The board will now reconvene the open session of the June 25th, 2020 regular action meeting of the Board of Education of Hinsdale Township High School District 86. The time is 6:03 p.m. Please stand, and if you are able, join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to suspend the regular board meeting and convene a public hearing on the fiscal year 2020 budget amendment.
So moved.
Motion Cheval, second by Held. Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
Member Camden.
Aye.
Member Cheval.
Aye.
Member Hirschman.
Aye.
Member Hanson.
Aye.
Member Held.
Aye.
Member Turek.
Aye. The ayes have it. Motion carries 6-0. I will now call the public hearing to order. The time is 6:04 p.m. The board approved the budget in tentative form on June 17, 2019, and in final form on September 26, 2019. Because construction expenses relating to the referendum projects were unknown at the time, the budget was adopted in September. The board now holds this hearing on an amendment to the fiscal year 2020 budget reflecting construction expenses. Notice of this hearing was posted in the doings on May 21st, 2020. The budget amendment was discussed with the Finance Committee at the June 17 Finance Committee meeting. Chief Financial Officer Stevenson, do you have any additional comments on the amended budget?
I do not have any additional comments. We've obviously talked about this at probably between finance and the board meetings, the last 4 or 5 board meetings consecutively, that we were just making the adjustments related to construction, and we were also taking advantage of this amendment to make the adjustments related to the school closure. So those are the adjustments that are included here.
Members of the administration have any comments? Board members have any comments? I do, and that is to say, this has been an issue for at least the last 2 Finance Committee meetings. For those who may be interested, look at the historical archives, particularly of the June Finance Committee meeting where we talked about doomsday budgeting scenario and why we think this is a pretty good estimation of where we may well be. I don't see any public members here for comment on the budget. Has anybody identified, and for those of you watching at home, I'm pointing to our able security staff. Is there anybody identified that wish to speak on the budget?
Not the budget, no.
Very well. Do we have any virtual comments on the budget? Okay, Deb, will you read that?
Yep,
Or
I have
those,
one
please?
virtual comment. This is from Alan Ruby of Burr Ridge. Mr. Ruby says, on March 26, 2020, the school board approves the employment of 375.4 full-time equivalent individuals to staff the general education and special education programs at Hinsdale Central, Hinsdale South, and Transition Center for the 2021 school year. Tonight, the school board will vote on the approval of a budget for fiscal year 2020. Included in that budget is an amount of $55,434,773 for salaries in the education account, page 3, line 87. Is that amount intended to cover the salary expenses of those 375.4 full-time equivalent employees? That would be an overall average cost per employee of $147,669. Similarly, $21,558,193,000 has been budgeted for employee benefits, page 3, line 88. Again, is that amount intended to cover the employee benefit costs of the same 375.4 full-time equivalent employees, an average cost per employee of $57,427? If the answer to both questions is yes, then it would not be the case that the amount being budgeted for employment-related costs of the educational staff in District 86 is averaging $205,096 per employee.
Any more virtual comments, Deb? No. Thank you, Mr. Ruby, for your comments. Josh, is there anything you wish to add after hearing that comment?
So there's a little bit of confusion. Obviously, there's action on two different budget items tonight. One is the amended budget for the current fiscal year, and then the second one is the tentative budget for fiscal year 2021. So there's a comparison here between the fiscal year 20, or the staffing for fiscal year 21, and then the amended budget for fiscal year 20 for the current year. So there's some confusion there. I guess simply put, the FTE for the district is about 600. So the staffing number referenced there is only certified staffing, so that ignores all the non-certified staffing in the district. 55 million includes not only base salaries, but all supplemental pays, which is not really, you wouldn't put in as part of an individual salary. And then the last item would be the insurance number, and that's an inclusion of the insurance expense and the self-insurance fund activity, which is actually a duplication kind of the total dollar amounts. So it's not truly the 20-some million dollars. You're getting an extra $10 million of self-insurance fund activity lumped in there, which is increasing the number. So the numbers presented there are not really accurate with what's reflected in the budget.
When you say the numbers presented there, are with regard to Mr. Ruby's comments or the budget?
The numbers so the numbers given, I guess, in the comment are actual numbers pulled from staffing and pulled from the budget line items, but there's no context in the comparison, or the conclusion made is not really legitimate because it's lacking the context of what those numbers actually represent.
So I would ask Mr. Ruby, who is an often visitor to the meeting, but not tonight, he's welcome to attend the finance meetings as any member of the public is, and I know he knows how to contact us via email, so if he wishes to follow up with you relative to costing out, he will certainly do that. No other virtuals, Deb?
No other.
And we have no live commenters on the budget? Okay, with that, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the amended budget for fiscal year 2020 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion held, second by Herschman. Any discussion? This comes with the blessing of the Finance Committee. Again, in both May and June, there was significant discussion about what the budget might look like post shelter in place, and Josh has done a very good job, I think, taking favorability into account as well as some negative factors moving forward. Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
Member Chevall.
Aye.
Member Herschman.
Aye.
Member Hanson.
Aye.
Member Held.
Aye.
Member Turek.
Aye.
Member Camden.
Aye, the ayes have it, motion carries 6-0. May I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing and to return to open or regular session?
Motion.
Motion Hanson, second Chevall. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Member Herschman.
Aye.
Member Hanson?
Aye.
Member Held?
Aye.
Member Pollock? I'm sorry, Member Turek?
Aye.
Member Camden?
Aye.
Member Chabot?
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carries 6-0. We'll now move to audience communication. Audience comments will follow procedures outlined in policy 2:230. Members of the public were provided an opportunity to share their comments with the board virtually, and many did. The board will hear audience comments for a total of 30 minutes this evening. We will begin with in-person comments, and there are approximately 10 people here for comments in person, and then move to comments submitted electronically. Any comments that are not completed within the 30-minute allotment will be provided to the board and posted to the audience communication agenda item in board docs. As I indicated, I believe we have 10 in-person comments. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. At our first speaker, when they come in, will be introduced. I would ask Josh and Principal Picorni Lip if you could move to the ante room. There are viewing windows there, and there, and in the event of a water emergency, that way we can keep to the 10-person numbers. I would also ask that Board Member Held, if you have your phone handy, can you start the timer on the total 30 minutes for us? I know Keith will be running the 3-minute per person. Good evening. If you step up to the podium, introduce yourself. You have 3 minutes, please.
Awesome, thank you. Good evening. My name is Tim Romberter. I am the current president of the Hinsdale Central Hockey Club. I wanted to thank the board for the opportunity to speak today. While as a club, we
Tim, I hate to interrupt. Pick the microphone up a little bit, just because of the broadcast. It will.
Okay. Sorry, is that better?
Thank you.
All right. I'm conscious of not spitting on the microphone. Okay, so first of all, thank you again for the opportunity to speak. As a club, while we can certainly recognize and understand the impetus and rationale for considering changes to the policy 8.22, we also think it's important for the board to understand why we believe it would be a mistake to sever the relationship that our club has with the Hinsdale Central community. Over the course of the next few minutes, you will hear from a handful of speakers, including fellow board members, our current hockey director, and a few former and current players. Through the course of this discussion, it's our hope that you see the merits of not moving away from the affiliation with our club, but instead creating an even tighter connection that we have today, whether through a reversal of course on 8.22 or a separate agreement with our club. The core issue for us is this: kids grow up wanting to play sports for their high school. Hockey players are often one-sport athletes given the time and dedication and length of season. Taking the opportunity to play to play a sport for their school would be unfortunate, to say the least. As a bit of context before others speak, I wanted to share some background on our club. Hinsdale Central Hockey Club has been active for almost 50 years, founded in 1972. Also happens to be the year I was born. The club is 501c3 under the name Hinsdale Central Ice Devils Hockey Club. We file tax returns, and we're in good standing in complying with all federal and state requirements associated with being a 501c3. We've been investing significant time and energy behind building what we call a championship culture, and that's a championship culture both on and off the ice. Our hockey director, Jim Sawyer, will talk more about that in a moment. We're actively involved in community service, in particular with a focus on Willowbrook Corner, an organization we support through our partnership with the Community House. We have a code of conduct that is in fact stricter than what we know of other Hinsdale Central athletic and non-athletic organizations, and we have a formalized board of 9 members that governs the club and ensures adherence to this code of conduct and oversees development of our championship culture. As part of that board, we have a rules and ethics committee that's responsible for executing all disciplinary action and has consistently taken decisive action when necessary, oftentimes exceeding requirements of AHI and USA Hockey. Is that 3 minutes? Oh.
20 seconds. 20 seconds left.
Oh, okay.
I was just trying to give you a heads up that you're about there.
Got it. Without school sponsorship, the financial burden associated with playing hockey is substantial for our membership. If we have to drop the Hinsdale Central Red Devils name and logo, we would incur significant one-time costs associated with reordering jerseys and other equipment. And we'd also be losing a substantial investment we've made in branding ourselves as Hinsdale Central at our facilities.
Tim, your 3 minutes are up, but I will commend you. You sent all the board members your comments, not to deprive you of the opportunity, but I certainly read them, and I know other board members have, and I get the sense that among the other folks that are here, if you forgot something, somebody might be able to pick it up, so.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
I will get the next person. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Bachwald, WebEx folks are reporting it's hard to hear what they are sharing. I don't know if the microphone.
I know we can hear the microphone, but I don't know how that translates.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but can you hold for just a couple minutes? We want to make sure that the online folks are hearing what you're saying as well.
You have selected Microsoft David. You have selected Microsoft David as the default voice.
It may be user issues because I'm receiving text messages from audience members in the comfort of their home that are saying they could hear the last person. So I'm confident people watching at home will advise us if they can't hear.
We have 2 internals.
Okay. Ma'am, if you'd be so kind as to introduce yourself, please.
Sure. I'm Kristen Haig, and I'm a current Hinsdale Central Hockey Board member. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. So I'm a Hinsdale Hockey Board member and also a former Division I athlete. So I have great respect for the student-athlete experience because I feel that it really helped shape my life. And that's part of the reason that I wanted to serve on the Hinsdale Central Hockey Club board. One of my favorite quotes that I'm going to share with you this evening is from Bob Scalise. Bob is the Harvard University athletic director. He's retired, but he served in this role for over 40 years. According to Bob, athletics are not extracurricular. They are a major part of a student's education. We believe that translates to high school and is the core of everything our staff does. So the reason I shared this quote is it really summarizes why we are here this evening. Athletics are proven to help students learn how to navigate and persevere through life's challenges and grow into well-rounded adults. A little background on me. I grew up in Minnesota in the high school hockey culture. And as I was growing up, I saw many young student athletes pursuing their goal of having the opportunity to represent their school and wear their school name on their jersey. I saw students train for years with the goal of accomplishing this, and in many cases it was no easy feat. This culture has been embraced in Minnesota for generations, and every high school in Minnesota has a hockey team and a hockey rink. We are seeing this trend in Illinois right now as well. We are just developed as Minnesota, but we're definitely seeing a trend of hockey in high school being important. Hinsdale Central is in the Illinois West Conference. The Illinois West Conference is comprised of 14 teams, and all 14 teams wear their school name on their jersey with pride. This is also true in the Scholastic Conference. The Scholastic Conference is comprised of 7 teams from schools such as New Trier, Stevenson, Glenbrook North, and Barrington. And in the last month, I've spent a lot of time speaking to presidents of various high school hockey clubs across the Chicago area, and also with the Scholastic Conference president. And what I found is that we all have some things in common in what we're looking to achieve. We're looking to develop strong student athletes and promote things such as high moral character, a dedication to academic excellence, an association to the high school, and a student athlete experience that really prepares kids for their college years and beyond. Finally, I want to, on a personal level, share something that that I think is important and that made me feel very comfortable with hockey and contributed to my decision to volunteer as a team manager and as a board member for various hockey organizations over the last 10 years. We have a very strong governing body, a national governing body, and that's USA Hockey. And USA Hockey provides rules and ethics that are very detailed, that cover our behavior and what's expected. On a local level, AHI, which is the Amateur Hockey Association of Illinois, is responsible for enforcing those guidelines. So we answer on a local level and on a national level. Finally, one other excellent organization is Safe Sport. Safe Sport is an organization that conducts required training for all coaches and managers, and the goal is to ensure the safety of all athletes. So,
Thank you. I don't mean to interrupt, but your 3 minutes have expired. Thanks.
Thank you for your time, and I'll now turn things over to our head coach and hockey director, Jim Sawyer.
Thank you. Good evening. Introduce yourself, please, and you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, well, first, thank you for having us speak today and hearing us out. I'd like to start by saying, in hockey, the name on the front of the jersey is a hell of a lot more important than the name on the back. Tonight, we're fighting to protect 5 decades of Red Devil hockey tradition at Hinsdale Central. My name is Jim Sawyer. I am the hockey director and varsity head coach. I'm also a Hinsdale resident. I have 2 graduates who are doing well in school, in college, and an incoming freshman. I'm a level 5 USA Hockey certified coach, and this past season was my 30th year coaching, the 3rd with the Red Devils. I've coached NCAA college hockey, youth hockey, and 2 high school programs. I also, in the off season, work with NHL players, professionals all over the world. The one thing that I found so encouraging about working with these people is how they're so community oriented. The Red Devil hockey board, coaching staff, and players carry that same quality with them wherever they go, every day. Our hockey team, our hockey club, has embraced what we refer to as a championship culture. It's not just about winning a state championship. We're about the process of creating a team culture with extremely high work ethic. Hockey is a tough sport, both physically and mentally. Dealing with adversity and this sport provides with a great platform for our players to learn, develop, and grow. In life, winning is the byproduct. The last 3 seasons, we made the final 16 of state. The past season, the Red Devils ranked 11th out of 80 varsity teams. Our JV team made it to the state quarterfinals in the state tournament. We're inching our way toward a state championship. That's not what is really important with our culture. This is what we really focus on. 75% of our Red Devils varsity team were academic all-stars or dean's list students. 12 of our players were named to the Illinois West All-Star team. 2 players were named to the Illinois All-State team. 2 players won the Illinois West Community Service Award. 1 of our players won the Illinois West Scholastic Award. This last season, our Red Devils JV head coach was awarded Coach of the Year by Illinois West. That all happened this past season. Following, we're going to have 4 young men that are going to represent the players. What I ask is, you listen to what they're saying. Listen to who they represent. 3 of these are alum that have come back and they're going to take time out of their day to support this initiative. Their lives have been sculpted by the concept of playing for the name on the front of their jersey. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening. Please introduce yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Awesome. My name is Charlie Kapp. First off, I'd like to thank you guys for giving all of us an opportunity to speak on behalf of the Hinsdale Central name. As Coach Sawyer has already mentioned, hockey as a culture embodies the idea of playing for the name on the front of your jersey more so than the name on the back. I played for the Hinsdale Central hockey team all 4 years of my high school career. I was a 3-year varsity captain, 4-year Illinois West Academic All-Star, and 3-year Illinois West All-Star. I have now continued on to play at the University of Colorado Boulder as a Buffalo. I had a choice to make when I was in 8th grade, and it ended with me choosing the Hinsdale Central Ice Devils. I had played travel hockey for my entire childhood, and I could tell you the name of every single club that I had played for. And so when I was in 8th grade, my dad told me I had to pick. Either I continue on with travel hockey or play for the high school team. Now I knew that I had greater potential for exposure playing travel hockey, and I'll be honest, that was very important to me at the time. But when my dad really put it into perspective for me, that I would be able to play for the Hinsdale Central Ice Devils, play with my best friends, and the ones that I would be able to see in the hallways every single day, it was a no-brainer. I forgot about the name on the back and remembered what was important to me as a hockey player, and that is the name on the front, the Hinsdale Central Ice Devils. This club has done so much for me. It taught me the importance of teamwork, of self-respect, of reality, and that shaped me into the man I am today. I was lucky enough to experience a new, driven coaching staff for the last year of my 4 with the program. And I couldn't even imagine the difference they could have made if they had joined 3 years prior. But this program is on the rise, that much I can tell you. And ladies and gentlemen, you will want them to be wearing the Hinsdale Central logo as they make that climb. I'm extremely proud to call myself an Ice Devil, and as are all the players who have come through this program for the past 5 decades. And I hope my voice can resonate with you as the Hinsdale Central Ice Devil name did with me. Thank you, and I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Alexander Hazeman.
Thank you, Charlie.
Collectively? Where are we at collectively?
60 minutes.
Thank you. Try this so we can slide. Travel time.
They can hear it home.
I'm confident. I've got a number of guys saying that. That's not me. Justin, before you do it.
Please introduce yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Alexander Hadesman, and I just completed my freshman year at Hinsdale Central High School. I was on the JV hockey team and was fortunate enough to practice with the varsity team throughout the season and play in several varsity games. I decided to forego another year of Central State's travel hockey to play for my high school. I soon discovered I made the right decision. Hinsdale Central Hockey Club is truly devoted to the development of excellence both on and off the ice. Many days throughout the year, I found myself inundated with work from all of my honors classes. It became clear to me that the coaching staff truly understands the pressures and responsibilities of being a student athlete, as they were very supportive of me, even if it required time off the ice. I always feel tremendous pride when I wear my hockey jersey with my high school name, Hinsdale Central, emblazoned on it. Every time I put on my Hinsdale Central jersey, I become an ambassador, representing a school that has established such a high bar for academic and athletic achievement. Being a student and athlete at Hinsdale Central is a special experience that I expect will be with me for the rest of my life. I hope you will allow me to continue to represent the school that I hold in such high regards. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Please introduce yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Weston Ball.
There you go. Thank you.
My name is Weston Ball. My name is Weston Ball, and I'm a recent graduate. Since I have a limited amount of time, I will get right into it. Red Devil hockey is a family. As a wide-eyed freshman, hockey gave me comfort in knowing I had a place at Central. It allowed me to meet other freshmen and some of my best friends today. It also allowed me to become, at the very least, teammates with upperclassmen, which as someone who is just learning how to get around campus was really helpful and really cool. Being able to sit with the big kids and talk about hockey, or even just how everyone's day went, it goes a long way in the self-esteem of a freshman. As I grew up alongside the program, I took this to heart, and I've done my best to make every new player feel welcome not only on the ice, but at school too. I also developed traits such as fairness, dedication, and above all, leadership. I recently won the Illinois West Leadership Award, voted on by both players and coaches, the best part of which was winning it while wearing the HC across my chest. I would not be the person I am today without my experiences with Hinsdale hockey. Fairness, dedication, leadership. These are all things I've learned from my time with this club, and I'm positive these are the traits that the Board of Education wishes to implement into every classroom in District 86. So I ask you, why take away the very name of a successful program that teaches the very qualities the district promotes in the classroom? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. You guys hear me okay? All right. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Connor Donlevy, and I played for the Hinsdale Central Hockey Club for all 4 years I attended high school here. Not only was I able to meet some of my best friends on this team, I was able to buy into the championship culture that Coach Sawyer mentioned earlier this evening, giving me the drive to succeed, not only in the athletic sphere, but also in my academic efforts. I was an academic all-star for the entirety of my career at the Hinsdale Central Hockey Club, and my hard work in the classroom allowed me to be accepted to the University of Notre Dame, where I studied political science and Arabic and am a Dean's List student. The club's commitment to service has also stuck with me beyond my high school years, as I am currently an employee of the Council on American Islamic Relations, a nonprofit that advocates for the Muslim community in Illinois and across the country. I can say with full confidence that had it not been for the sport of hockey and the championship culture the Hinsdale Central Hockey Club ascribes to, I would never have had the drive to accomplish the things I have, and I would certainly not have the motivation to do more. The Hinsdale Central Hockey Club has done great things for me, and playing for it was a vital part of my education and my interest in more diverse experiences and opinions. But this current issue is not about me. Although I will always be a Red Devil, I am no longer suiting up every day in a Red Devil uniform. I am no longer playing my hardest for the guys beside me and the logo on my chest. I'm no longer representing everything that logo stands for on and off the ice. The ones wearing that logo now, the current players, are the reason that I am speaking here today. And that logo reads, and has always read, Hinsdale Central. I cannot describe how much it meant to me and to everyone on the team to have that name on our chests for every practice and every game. A logo is a sacred thing in hockey. You never let the jersey which bears it touch the ground, and you never step where it is printed on the floor of the locker room. The importance of including the school's name in this logo cannot be overstated. It gives players pride to know they are representing their school every day, and the use of the school name is a vital piece of that pride. I hope that the kids who are playing and will play for this club are allowed to experience the same pride that I did. Ultimately, this decision is up to you. I can only ask that you consider what keeping the name means to players and alumni, and you act with them in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Go ahead and Sure. 3 minutes when I begin. Good evening. My name is Jim Dugan, and I too proudly serve as a board member of Hinsdale Central Hockey. It is my honor and privilege to serve such aspiring, motivated student athletes as it is to address the D86 board this evening. You have heard testimony from many Hinsdale hockey players, past and present, coaches and parents. We are galvanized around a central message for your reflection. Student athletic experiences are foundational, especially at the formative high school ages. As Coach Sawyer passionately conveyed, representing your high school endeavor is much more about your personal achievement. Rather, it helps to solidify the very bedrock of your dedication and commitment to your community. As others have shared tonight, I too was an NCAA student athlete and a varsity letterman for the University of Rochester. Whereas I played a different sport, I have been overwhelmed by the pride for Hinsdale Central displayed by our student athletes across all sports, varsity or club, but none more so than the hockey family. Hockey is the ultimate team sport, relying upon total commitment and trust of teammates and coaches. At last, it draws the finest young men and women. The hockey team's strong camaraderie and devotion to the high school community inspired me to spearhead the launch of Hinsdale Central Hardship Endowment Fund in 2019, for which we have received over $100,000 in commitments already in 12 months. These financial resources are devoted entirely to help the deserving student athletes whose participation is jeopardized by financial hardship, compounded by the significant costs of hockey. I strongly attest, without hesitation or reservation, that I would not have embarked upon this quest if the cause was not so just, nor necessarily for the hockey team. As Kristen articulated so well, student athletics has shaped my life in such formative ways that I could not imagine my modest successes without the foundation and launchpad of student athletics. Student athletics, or any avocation which represents one's school, is an essential part of the fabric of a strong interwoven community. Moreover, in today's world ripe of vitriol and turmoil, how could we possibly cast a vote of separatism, the result of which would be deny these fine young men the honor of continuing this proud 50-year tradition for their high school? Instead, let us lead by example to illuminate a path of inclusion and tolerance for the next generation of community servant leaders such as yourselves. Therefore, in summary, we seek for this board to leave Policy 822 intact as is, or alternatively, should you decide to repeal Policy 8.22, we would propose to you to work with us in conjunction with our hockey club to facilitate an amicable partnership consistent with the proposal Tim Romberger has previously submitted. In closing, let us be reminded that we are debating not merely the usage of namesake, rather we are passing judgment on the very pride of association for high school athletics. Whether it is the Red Devil mascot or the American flag itself, some symbols are too sacred to territorialize. We thank you for your time to hear our impassioned pleas of support and inclusion. Thanks very much.
Mr. Dugan, you may not hear this because you probably won't have the live access. After all of public comment is over, and it's not yet complete, we have online comments to read. Board members have an opportunity to make comments. I would like to make it clear that whether the board extinguishes Policy 822, and I'm not certain that's going to happen tonight one way or the other, I don't look at it as a zero-sum game. I think there are other opportunities that can be looked at. So if I know there were 7 folks that spoke in front of you, if you would take that message back so they understand it's not a one-shot deal tonight. This may be evolving as we move forward.
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And as I said, should you decide something happen, we look forward to working with you. So thanks for that commentary. I'll bring it back. Thank you. Good night.
Madam Board Secretary, we have comments that were emailed in, correct?
That is correct.
Will you be starting, or will Superintendent Prentice?
I can start. And just, we separated the categories. There were additional 17 on that same topic. And so we're going to shift to other topics, but know that we will upload, as we always do, the other comments.
Board Member Held tells me we have approximately 8 minutes left, and at this point we could bring back CFO Stevenson and Principal Lip from the exclusionary chamber.
They don't want to come back.
Superintendent Prentice, please.
Certainly. The first is from Jason Beer, Hinsdale District 181. The topic is school reopening. I am very concerned about the mental health of our children. While they were in isolation, it was very difficult. I appreciate the teachers' efforts with e-learning, but it was not the same at all. We need to open up schools as normal for 5 days a week, in-person education. There is a very low viral load in children, and they are half as likely than adults to get infected with the virus. The mortality rate for children between the ages of 5 to 17 is 0.0% according to the CDC. Take the precautions you feel necessary, but do not cancel exercise, music, band, choir. Practice outside in a tent if need be. Have performances outside if need be, but don't cancel them. I trust you will make the right decision for our children and the teachers and administration. Thank you. You have my full support and trust.
My comment is from Tricia Patterson, Hinsdale Central Alumni Class of '06. Thank you so much for your time. As an alumni of the school and 4-year president of my class, Hinsdale Central was foundational in my education and those of my peers. With the current civil rights movement going on in our country, I'd be remiss not to ask, what is the district currently doing to address the topic of systemic racism with students and teachers, especially given the racist comments recently made on social media by a HSHS student? Downers Grove South released a statement with action items. Fenwick has appointed a task force. What will District 86 do to come up with a comprehensive plan from educating students and teachers to updating the curriculum and programming?
The next one is from community member Molly Watke from Hinsdale. The agenda topic is the Recovery Revitalization Committee update. If the return to school involves hybrid instruction, how will the co-curricular activities be impacted? Can we expect students to practice or compete with classmates, teammates on a different hybrid schedule? How will District 86 support thousands of minors, children left home alone without supervision several days a week? Additionally, how will District 86 provide support to the students, 504 IEP special education, unable to manage learning at home on a regular basis? This specific scenario will be an issue regardless of the family status in the workforce. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration of my questions.
Next is Lauren Adrian. What is District 86's plan to address systemic racism, racial biases, microaggressions, and provide in-depth trainings to both students and teachers? Currently, there is a 2-day teacher training in place and social emotional learning time once a month for students. But what does the school board plan to do to advance District 86 in this vital time to ensure action and progress our schools in its abilities to address these very present issues?
The next community member is Isaiah, no last name, from Woodridge Educational Planning Address Racism. What active steps will be taken to educate students better on racism to help decrease racial biases in the community?
Deborah Allen of Darien. Her comment is how and who will enforce safety procedures and precautions?
Betsy Levy, Burr Ridge, General. It's been almost a month since the last District 86 board meeting, one in which 2 district lawyers tried to address legitimate concerns with illogical claims. If you've been following any of this South Gets the Short End of the Stick story, you know 3 things. 1, you know it was close to 2 years ago that board members apologized profusely to Hinsdale South community once they realized that inequities in the core courses, electives, and co-curriculars have existed for years and vowed to remedy the problem via goals and strategies. 2, you know that South students have always received a fine education with excellent teachers, advisors, and coaches in spite of the fact that they've been denied, cheated, and bamboozled along the way, especially as enrollment declines. 3, you know that South's ever-plummeting enrollment, which results in fewer teachers, make it impossible now and certainly in the future to ever support full District 86 curricula and activities or to ever compete for the all-academic and sports scholarship opportunities available at its sister school. So let me get this straight. 2 years ago, board members apologized to the Hinsdale South community once it was studied, determined, and reported by staff that inequities in core courses, electives, and co-curriculars have existed at South for years. And the board and administrators vowed to remedy the problem via alignment goals and strategies. With all that's been going on the pandemic, with the protests, with the if and the when and how schools will reopen questions, And within District 86 itself, with its multi-million-dollar building renovation expansion project, its e-learning, its determination of what schools will look like going forward, with its relatively new superintendent, its relatively new communications director, with the firing of one assistant superintendent of academics and the hiring of another, not to mention the whole physics of the university fiasco and the freedom of speech lawsuit. With all of that going on, the board still took upon itself to invite a law firm to compile and present information about the equity of schools requirement and address concerns raised by some community members that the difference in enrollment between Hinsdale Central and Hinsdale South has led to unequal educational opportunities for students. The board got what it paid for, a mishmash of answers to questions that no one really asked. While it has seemed all along like board members have not been listening, as it turns out they have been, but with only one ear. They either didn't understand the concern or they chose not to. Either way, the right questions weren't asked of the attorneys, so the attorneys' conclusions are useless. I would ask the board to review items 1, 2, and 3 listed above. Those are the concerns. You had started on this path to correct them, but dragging in the lawyers for some mind-boggling spin and nonsense. It seems you've put us back on a reverse course.
Let me correct the statement that I read before, because the way it came in, it was not complete. How and who will enforce safety procedures and precautions that will be put in place for students returning to school in the fall? And that was from Deborah Allen. The next comment is from Alan Jones of Burr Ridge regarding opening of schools. My question, which I have asked at the last 3 board meetings, is what District 86's plan for reopening schools. What is District 86's plan for reopening of schools in August? We know that the guidelines for reopening schools from the governor's office. Based on these guidelines, I would assume that schooling, as this community knows it, has ended. In order to comply with governmental guidelines, I would assume that at a minimum, that the district would be required to rework schedules and the school calendar to accommodate the social distancing requirements. In reading what other district states are doing, that would mean split sessions, year-round schools, moving elective programming to other platforms, online platforms, elimination of programs where student staff are required to come into close contact, example, physical education. In addition to school calendars and instructional course offerings, what plans are being made to implement processes for cleaning of facilities, for safe bus transportation, for screening students and staff for virus infections, for closing schools if students or faculty test positive or become ill during the day? As yet, these questions have gone unanswered. I can assure you that parents in our community are asking these questions and are growing impatient with the silence from the District 86 administration.
We got 26 seconds left.
One more, Tammy, please.
The next one is from community member Robert Levy, Burr Ridge, Agenda General. Notwithstanding the unsubstantiated legal opinion rendered by Indiana Jones, South parents, students, and taxpayers will continue to advocate for fair and equitable treatment by the District 86 Board and Administration. There are no reasons why South students should continue to be denied the opportunities to earn college scholarships for lacrosse or robotics. It is impossible to conclude that denying those opportunities to South students while providing them to Central students is fair, equitable, or in compliance with Illinois law. South students deserve the hiring of coaches for these activities and the formal establishment of the programs at South. Included should be the reopening of the South Radio Studio to permit South students equal opportunities to participate in the district radio station, which is almost now entirely dedicated to Central students. As for lacrosse and robotics, the only option is to make them district teams with a certain number of roster spots reserved for South and a certain number for Central. What is the District 86 objection to that solution? Well, District 86 says that the solution is not possible because it results in fewer opportunities for Central students. So the District 86 mindset is that it is better to totally deny opportunities to South students than to reduce opportunities for Central students. This mindset is flawed and discriminatory and must change. I do appreciate the dedication to community service by the board members. District 86 needs to, it says bold leadership, I believe hold leadership and fresh ideas. The methods of the past will not address the future needs of District 86. The failure of the board to address enrollment balancing is a prominent example. The problem is not going away and it needs a solution now. I hope that you are all up to the tasks before you.
Thank you for the audience comments. Did any members of the administration have comments in response to the audience communication? Seeing none, do any board members have comments in response to audience communication? I made, I guess, chapter 1 comments earlier, and I will follow them up. With respect to the individual raising questions about what school will look like, what classroom may look like, a hybrid, we've talked about this at every meeting this summer, and the reality is it's a fluid situation. I can't, nor could Superintendent Prentice, tell you what school is going to look like tomorrow, because it's like trying to nail Jell-O to the wall. Things keep moving, and as things move, we're putting out updates and letting folks know. I am certain, and I think Superintendent Prentice would agree, that school in the fall will not be like school that stopped on March 16th. There's going to be a difference. The difference is what we're trying to sort out and figure out. We don't have the luxury of running schools like a business. And while a 50-person assembly tomorrow may be acceptable, on a given day for this crazy thing called lunch, it's problematic for us. So for folks that are chomping at the bit, we understand. The student safety is paramount for every board member and every administrator, but we're not going to engage in ready, fire, aim. We're trying to get the best information we can. We appreciate everybody's comments. We ask you to bear with us. We're doing the best we can, considering the ISBE recommendations, such as they may be, came out Tuesday afternoon. Things are still unrolling, and we ask you to bear with us. We are putting out as much information as we can. So that's my comment on audience comments. Any other board members? Moving on to good news. Superintendent Prentice and Principal Pokorny-Lip.
It is my pleasure to share this great news. Ms. Pokorny, do you want to take it over? So some good news Thursday.
Okay. Yes, I'm so excited to be able to share this. So in November, Hinsdale South High School became an award given annually by the American Psychological Association, APA. They have a Golden Psy Award that's presented to one school in the nation on an annual basis. It recognizes schools for using evidence-based practices to effectively promote the academic and social-emotional learning, engagement, and development of their students. And last month, we were informed that we were the National Golden Psy Award winner. So we are very proud to be recognized by such a prestigious organization. They typically make a big to-do and send out their entire administrative team to school boards to present the award. Obviously, that's not happening right now, but I am in touch with them to do that at some point in the future. So we are celebrated on APA's webpage with a formal press release issued by them. They highlighted the work Hinsdale South has done with Lurie Children's Hospital's Center for Childhood Resilience to become a trauma-informed school, along with our partnership with Yale University's Center for Emotional Intelligence and the use of their ruler curriculum, and also celebrated the racial equity work that we've done that's designed to provide every student with access to a supportive and rigorous academic experience in a school environment that is culturally inclusive for students of color. So we do receive a plaque, we receive a $1,000 donation, and then in part of this celebration on board docs, we thanked a great number of staff members who were involved not only with writing the proposal, but have helped do the work that truly has transformed our school culture into being an inclusive place for all students. So we're very proud to be recognized by such a prestigious organization, so we wanted to celebrate that tonight.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
At this point, we'll move on to the board committee reports, and I will ask HR Committee Chairman Cheval for the HR Committee report from the June 2nd meeting.
Thank you, President. Thank you, President Camden. There are notes contained within the agenda. I'll highlight some of those. We met on June 2nd and discussed various items, obviously related to HR. One that we discussed was board meeting hiring protocols, specifically in relation to Open Meetings Act requirements. Steve Rickert from Hodges Luigi participated in that and gave us an overview of the requirements of the Act. And then we had some discussion about historical practices at 86. Then the requirements of the Act have evolved over time and more recently, so that our practices weren't necessarily lined up, but actually were beyond the requirements of what the Open Meeting Act required. So we come and we make a few recommendations to the board with respect to that in the hiring process within the district. So the first that you see in the agenda would be the protocol for the treatment of administrator contracts in board docs. And what the HR committee is recommending is that administrator contracts presented for board approval, in other words, they haven't yet been approved, will not be posted in public content in board docs. Once they are approved, once an administrator's contract is approved, those contracts will then be released to the public upon receipt of a FOIA request for the contract. Then with respect to protocol for action language in board docs, what we are proposing is that the motion language posted to the agenda within the 48-hour posting window required for agendas in board docs should include the position, or the position title, proposed base salary, and the duration of the contract, as opposed to more detailed information and the individual's name because of sensitivities with respect to that prospective hire's current employment prior to approval. Next is protocol for a 6-day salary posting, and our understanding is that the OMA has a 6-day requirement, and it applies only to IMRF/ hires or employees, and it does not apply, and we're recommending not applying it to the requirement to TRS or non-IMRF employees. And then finally, with respect to protocol for updating personnel matters within the 48-hour posting window, is to allow changes to time-sensitive personnel items for new hires and resignations within a 48-hour posting window, that there be a final posting by 48 hours, the day of the board meeting, to the hour that it's going to be determined by the board meeting. I'm sure that makes perfect sense, right? read the agenda. But those are the recommendations that we're making to have us in alignment with current OME requirements with respect to hiring protocols in those situations. Next, we talked a little bit about intellectual property notification and the onboarding, offboarding process with respect to employees and gaining greater understanding of employees with respect to District 86 intellectual property. Cybersecurity protocols were discussed, and a particular matter of interest would be the process of moving all our documents into a single repository, rather than having them across. I think we had them 2 repositories, and it'll be going to Google's system, which will provide us with some greater efficiencies and security. And Mr. Bockwell advised that the administration will roll out cybersecurity training for staff through GCN. What does GCN stand for again, Keith? Global
Compliance Network.
So it's essentially a process through which it will help to some degree automate and record, keep track of awareness of privacy standards in education for our employees. Had a COVID-19 update with respect to how we'll be handling that. You can read that, read all about it. And then a little bit of discussion with respect to administration and superintendent evaluation processes. I think the district has been making strides on a continual basis in those processes compared to where they were several years ago, and we want to continue to tighten that up and make it more meaningful and effective and helpful for our employees. That's it for the HR committee meeting.
Thank you, sir. Barring any objection, I'm going to pull 7.3 forward, ask the soon-to-be chair of the Finance Committee, Eric Held, to give that report, and then we will have the Policy Committee report, which will segue right into policies for first reading. Hearing no objections, Eric, take it away.
Sure. So we met virtually on June 17th to have our Finance Committee meeting, and many of the items that we discussed you'll see on the agenda here tonight. For example, the first topic, the amended budget for fiscal year 2020, discussing amending the budget because of referendum construction, but also, as has been mentioned several times at both the board meetings here and the Finance Committee meetings, because of favorability due to school closure, we were able to move fiscal year 2021 items, some of them to 2020, because of the favorability generated there. We also discussed tentative budget for fiscal year 2021, which comes up here in, I believe it's 14-1 tonight, to approve the tentative budget. And, again, looking forward over the next year and the years following are going to be somewhat in flux and a little bit in motion here, but we had a good discussion. We had very good counsel from CFO Josh Stevenson on the matter. We had a conversation over the first student contract extension, reviewing a proposal from them to extend the contract for an additional 2 years. And we wish to continue the conversation basically with first students, so at this point in time, that's not on the agenda here. Other items are going to be coming up on the agenda under the consent agenda here, 10.1, 10.2, and 10.4. We had the district depositories, again, annual review of where the district keeps its money, basically. Authorizing the fiscal year 2020 audit. So that is something, again, that is 10.2 that we'll be authorizing tonight as part of the consent agenda. And designation of interest earnings that, again, we periodically, I'm sorry, I need to get some water, review and approve this to provide flexibility, basically, to utilize prior year interest earnings in the future. And the final item that we discussed was the Oak Brook Reserve Project, which this is a development proposal in Oak Brook. We had a slide deck essentially showing some nice pictures of what this might look like up at the the McDonald's property. There aren't many details available at this point in time on what that might look like for the school when it comes to perhaps potential enrollment impact or not. Or from a financial standpoint, what sort of tax revenue would be generated from there. As we get more information from the developer or the village, we will circle back around with that. And thus was our finance meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Held. Madam Chairman, would you like to give the policy committee report?
Yes, I will. We had 2 policy committee meetings in the intervening time period, June 8th and June 15th. A major topic of discussion at the June 8th meeting was the proposal to rescind policy 822, and at that meeting we had our legal counsel available to answer questions regarding legal issues involving the policy. We also had presentation by the same gentleman who presented tonight, Tim Romberger, regarding the interest of the Hinsdale Central Red Devil Hockey Club. At that meeting, we discussed the concerns that we had regarding the policy, and I'm not going to go into that now because we're going to be talking about that policy when we get to policies. But I might as well summarize to set the table, so to speak. The concerns that were discussed at our policy committee meeting involved the administrative costs for a misunderstood relationship between the hockey club and the school district, cannibalizing of participation in other programs, assumption of district oversight, and the impact on organizations. I'm not sure I understand this, presented during public comment. Okay, but nonetheless, we determined that this issue should be brought before the entire board with a recommendation from our committee to rescind the policy. And when we get to the discussion of the policy, I'll be happy to weigh in with more detail about the basis for our recommendation of the rescission of the policy. We also reviewed and moved forward policies 4:110 transportation, 7:150 agency police and security officer interviews, 6:60 curriculum content, and 8:30 visitors to and conduct on school property. Policy 6:235 responsible use of electronic networks was reviewed for further revisions to address compliance with district technology protocols to maintain access rights to district documents. And CIO Bockwald outlined continued professional development, new teacher training planned to increase district adherence to responsible use practices. The policy committee recommends adoption of the new policy language, which is that policy 6:235. now presented for first read by the board. Moving more generally, at that same meeting, Superintendent Prentice provided an update following her discussion with our legal counsel on the impact of changes in the law around isolated timeout and physical restraint, and then pending changes to, well, I should say, we now have a final rule on Title IX, which will necessitate changes to our Title IX policy, practices, policy, and procedures. That was the June 8th meeting. I think that's the right date. Yes, June 8th meeting. Then at the June 15th meeting, we met with our IASB policy representative to submit policies from Section 6, instruction, Section 7, students, and other outstanding policies for editing and inclusion in the draft policy manual update. Superintendent Prentice provided an update on administrative procedures for policies 6:40 curriculum development, 6:210 instructional materials, and 6:300 graduation requirements identified by the committee for presentation to the board. Superintendent Prentice advised that the new Assistant Superintendent for Academics, Chris Covino, has joined the efforts of the Assistant Principals of Instruction to develop procedures that reflect policy updates in district practice. Draft administrative procedures for curriculum development and instructional materials, R-rated media, will be shared with the Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee at their July meeting for input. The Policy Committee will review the proposed procedures prior to presentation to the board in August. As to the next steps on the policy manual customization, the pending adoption policy manual is presented for first read on agenda item 8.1. The manual, there's a typo here, the manual and will return for consideration for approval on second read at the July regular action meeting. And our legal counsel will complete a cross-check of the updated policy manual and the district's collective bargaining agreements prior to the July regular action meeting. And the online district student handbook will be reviewed and updated in coordination with the publication of the online policy manual. We were busy. That's it.
I attended virtually the June 8th Policy Committee meeting and found it akin to Hercules cleaning out the stables, which meant I was not going to attend on June 15th, and not to diminish the work because it's significant. It frankly has been delayed for far too long, and it's important that the policies are being updated as well as administrative procedures. So I thank Kathleen and Cynthia both. It's not particularly exciting, but it's fundamental to what we do in the district. At this time, I would now ask either Cynthia or Kathleen, whoever feels like addressing it, to move into policies for first read. We can start with 6:235, responsible use of electronic networks.
It occurs to me, if there's somebody who would feel more comfortable just explaining the technical aspects of this policy, Cynthia, do you want to? I mean, I can read what's here, but...
We don't need to go word for word, and frankly, if we could defer to Mr. Bockwald, because not surprisingly, a lot of this was done at the board's direction to him. So, Keith, if you can give us, Keith, look at me, executive summary of 6:235, it would be greatly appreciated.
Very much appreciated.
I got that one. So this came about due to concerns over, confidential information and intellectual property that we have in the district. We had some conversation with Heather Brickman from Hodges Oeasy, and we came up with this language, and we feel it has a little more weight to address some of the concerns that have come up in the past regarding confidential information.
Board members have any questions regarding electronic network? Mr. Turek, this seems to be in your wheelhouse. Any questions?
No, it's complicated because there's both internal privacy, things that stay inside the network, and things that go outside the network, and things that come in. And I was reading through it a little bit,
It sounds like we probably struggle a little bit with capturing all the logs and the movement of what people do currently, maybe due to the systems not having the ability to capture logs.
Well, now we do have the ability with Google Enterprise. We can actually see the trace of where everything goes and how things are shared, where we didn't have that capability before.
And how long do you hold that for? Do they get washed out?
No, they're indefinite. We can do searches on any period of time.
That should solve a lot as far as forensics. I mean, you also know the business. And that's really what you're looking for. So unfortunately, if something pops up, you have an audit trail that is defensible. And more importantly, not just to catch people, but a lot of people do this inadvertently. So you can maybe set up alerts that if some type of action is done, it'll alert you. And oftentimes you call the employee and say, hey, do you know what you just did? I don't know if that sophistication level is there, because often people don't even realize that they've done something.
We don't actively police the documents, but there are audit logs we can pull up at any given time, which is a nice feature. We've had this now for about 2.5 to 3 months since we started migrating over to Google. And it also helps with academic integrity with our students.
So the flip side of that coin then would be document retention policies or data retention policies, and wanting to strike the right balance between how long we keep something and not keeping something forever for a whole lot of reasons, including, well, we'll just say for a whole lot of reasons. So is there anything in place or anticipated as far as that for different classes or kinds of records that we will only keep them for whatever it might be, 3 years or 4 years or a year or whatever it might be?
That's a good point, Mr. Spell, because this is one of the things I do want to have some more conversation with the policy committee about is retention of records. I'm just getting to a 1.5 point now. We're getting through all the different policies, and now we continue to refine as we move along. So that'll be one of the things I'll be bringing forward soon.
And so is this just a new one out of press, that the updated one? So we didn't edit it, it's just straight from the updated press, or did we alter it?
We updated this one just due to the need that we had in the district.
These are probably evolving every year. You're going to have to update them. They're just moving so fast, and a new technology gets introduced. The policy will have to be probably revisited on a regular basis versus others that might not change for years.
And every district has their own unique situation. So obviously press is the standard, and each district determines the alterations that they need to make to the policies.
Moving on to policy 822.
Okay. I feel like I've been living with this policy for the last 6 months, and now that I look at the notes, I have been living with it for the last 6 months. All right. Policy 822 was adopted in 2005, long before any of us was involved with this organization. I would hazard a guess any of us. And it deals with outside groups using the names of our schools, of our district, and specifically our logos, using all of them. And the policy the policy came to our attention as part of this process of reviewing our entire policy manual, which you know has been a very detailed, involved process. And as we were looking at this policy, we realized that it raised some significant legal considerations because unlike other clubs that are affiliated or associated with the school district, where we have some modicum of control over them, we don't have any control over these outside groups, but at the same time, under the policy, they are allowed to use our name, our school, our district, our logos, giving the community the impression that they fall under our auspices. But at the same time, they aren't, that we have no control over them. And so there was concerns about misconceptions in the community that these were school-sponsored clubs, which they aren't, and then certainly liability issues, that we would be responsible for things that involve the club over which we have no control by virtue of the fact that they were viewed as being associated with us. So we did a little investigation to find out how many groups actually exist under this policy, and currently there is only one, and that is the Hinsdale Central Ice Hockey Club. And we decided that, well, we had a very full discussion about this over several meetings, and it was our recommendation that we rescind the policy which would allow outside groups to use our exact names, logos, something that gives the impression that it is a school-sponsored activity, which we have the legal right to do. And so the recommendation was made to rescind the policy, but because the policy impacts current, the one group that still exists, we gave that group an opportunity to come in, and they gave us a very detailed presentation. I think that was at the June 8th meeting, and it was very similar to what we heard tonight. And we listened to them, and I have to say, I understand their concerns, I understand the history that they have, and their desire to continue operating under that name. But because of the significance of it, well, in my own view, the policy itself should be rescinded. I don't think we should allow outside groups to use our name and logo, giving the impression that it's a school-sponsored group. So on that basis, we, the committee, decided to bring forward a recommendation that the policy be rescinded. But because it does impact a currently existing group, and so it's not just an esoteric discussion, I thought it'd be very important to bring it before the board for a more fuller discussion. So that's where I put it in your hands, and
I'd like to hear from Policy Committee Member Hanson on this as well. I know she has some additional thoughts.
Other things I want to just mention about this policy, and when we went through the policy, looking through our whole policy manual, is that we found some press policies that every high school has, and then we found policies like this which were specific and unique and only in our school. And so those were the ones that we really took a look at and thought, how does this fit into our other policies? How does it intersect with other ways that we're looking for oversight at our school? That's one thing I want to mention. And the other thing I want to mention is that it's in reading the policy, if you just look at it, it really opens the door. Even though there's only one organization that uses it now, there is not much in here that gives much more oversight to us. So that was one of the reasons. I mean, it just creates a lot of liability for the district. And you know, I think I want to mention that we're not taking anything away from the ice hockey team as it exists. Thank you for coming and speaking tonight. Wonderful students, wonderful organization. But in terms of just the policy, the reason that we're recommending to rescind it is that it doesn't serve our district, actually, and might create additional liability as well. One of the things, sorry, as I go on, that we found is that our body that governs all high schools is IHSA, so that was kind of a leading thing that I had thought about. I know that we had other policies that we looked over, and if there was any question, we kind of led into who was the overarching governing body for the sports within high schools, Illinois high schools, so that's what we used for that.
So there were a couple instances this spring and summer where liability concerns came up over the use of the district's name, one of the district high school names, which has caused me to focus a lot more closely on this than I might otherwise have. It seems to me that 822 was created specifically for the Ice Devils, and in doing our homework, I'm not sure why a club that was established almost 50 years ago, only recently relative to the timeline, had a policy implemented. So that doesn't sit particularly well with me. And as I said earlier, I'm not looking to hurt anybody, and I think there is a way that we can work with the Ice Devils to give them what they need by way of affiliation that doesn't necessarily rise to the level of liability. So I would ask that policy continue to work with them in conjunction with the administration to move toward, rather than just have the policy, and there will be further discussion from other board members on this if they so choose. I'm in favor of rescinding 822, but looking at an agreement with the club directly that would allow them to continue in some fashion and not hurt anybody by any means. I'm encouraged by the quality of student that the club has and by the leadership, and all of those things are laudable to be sure. But at least for me, and it's probably an occupational hazard, the liability concern is significant, which is why I support rescinding 822 and finding an alternate arrangement for the Ice Devils.
That seems to make sense to me. As far as an alternative arrangement, and this may just be like dead on arrival, but is it a consideration or an option as far as them being an actual, not a club, but a team for the high school? Is that no?
Cynthia has done yeoman's work in looking at IHSA, and ice hockey is not in the pipeline, frankly, in your and I lifetime to be recognized as an IHSA sport. So we're going to have to deal with it. Yeah, we're going to, trust me, I was ignorant. I'm always ignorant, as my daughters tell me, but until yesterday, it's obvious IHSA is not going to pick up the baton on this. So we're going to have to deal with it on an affiliation basis.
Yeah, I'm consistent with you, Mr. Camden. So I was impressed with not only the students, the accolades, the volunteerism they do, and then find out they're building an endowment for kids who don't have the financial means to do it. And from what I heard, I'm kind of proud of the affiliation we have with them, of what they talked about. And I kind of look at it that, in a couple of notes, if it was an IHSA sport and we had it and we did support it, with all we're doing with the tennis courts and the football fields and the swimming, I couldn't imagine that we wouldn't, if hockey was a sport that we sponsored, we would be fully supporting that. But since it's not, I get it. I just wonder if it was, what we'd be doing it for, and would we be refreshing their ice or whatever it may be. And, I also don't hear anybody saying, get rid of the hockey team. I see that a lot of people wanting to support it. So in the event, I do agree that 822 is a little bit rough and we should rescind it. But I do want to give them an avenue to use the name to where it puts a distance from us from liability and the other things. But I do want to give them a path, as other schools do with clubs, to utilize the name and be proud and make sure that they hold up the expectations that they hold for themselves. And at any time, we have the right to rescind their right to use it if their demeanor or some type of actions go in a way that is not consistent with our ethics. So I'm in full support of, in the event we rescind it, putting something in that allows them to utilize the name that I think I'm proud that they're using and I think they're proud to use.
It's something that was just brought to my attention early this morning by another board member. There's another hockey club that uses the Hinsdale South logo, which is trademarked, that I'm not aware we've ever licensed them to use, as well as some other high schools. So we need to do a little more homework, and I'm not tisting or finger wagging at the policy committee. We didn't realize this was there. So this is going to be, I think, a broader review. It's a focus on hockey at the moment, but if there are other things we need to deal with, we can. But the DuPage Stars utilize the Hinsdale South logo, and we have no record of any licensing agreement. And to refresh the board's recollection, we licensed that from Georgia Tech for $1 a year. So there's significant acceptable use concerns there. And I'm not familiar enough with, frankly, either organization. I've been brought up to speed thanks to the Ice Devil folks recently. I don't know a thing about DuPage Stars, what their requirements are, so we need to take a look at that in the context of club affiliation and approval for logos and names and other things.
Okay, I think there's a distinction here. The Hinsdale Central Ice Devils are using a school name, and they are using our logo, and they are using our mascot name. all you're talking about with that other team, there's no reference to Hinsdale South High School, right?
I don't know that, and that's
Well,
why I'm
because-
suggesting we need to look at that
Well,
to make
yeah,
sure.
but I thought the research had been done on what other what other clubs in the community are similarly situated to the hockey club, and I was advised there was none. If this is some DuPage Stars and they're using the Hornet, they got an issue with Georgia Tech, not with us.
I see Arlen hopefully wishing to say something because she may have a better understanding of this, I hope.
I just kind of echo what Kathleen said. Like Kathleen said, we did do all the research and confirmed that we didn't see anyone. And I'm looking up DuPage Stars hockey right now, and their logo is not ours.
No, but on their webpage, they use the Downers North, the Downers South, the school logos in conjunction with.
They have a Hornet on there. They do have a Hornet. They have like North, South. They have a Hornet. They have a few other high schools that I'm not recognizing at the moment.
Well, what I understand about that, this is, see, now we're moving away from speaking of the particular policy. If we want to go into a discussion about hockey, I have done a lot of research. I'm more than happy to talk about that. The DuPage County Stars pulls from 5 different high schools. They pull down DGN, DGS, Hinsdale South, unusually, Lyle, and I think Westmont. And Hinsdale Central hockey teams pulls only specifically students from Hinsdale Central, so that's a distinction. So, and actually the DuPage County, or the DuPage Stars is actually also part of the Illinois West Conference for the Illinois Hockey League, so they don't use a high school name either. So if we want to get into that, we can. The other issue that I brought up in policy was that this board was, I don't think I was on the board, but it was approached by a student who did ice skating. Not a team that is affiliated with the school, but asked for a PE waiver, and the deciding thing for the board was that we only allow that waiver, which is per school, Illinois school code, for sports that are IHSA sanctioned. Yeah, sorry. So that was just additional information.
Yeah, I think if we do rescind this, putting in a policy that can be utilized for other clubs that may come in the future, it could be anything. It could be a number of them that we don't sponsor due to a number of reasons. They might not be sanctioned, but I think we want to put a vehicle in to, if we want to stimulate, individuals and students for joining clubs that might not be affiliated with it, but want to have pride in their school. So, and again, all of them would have to come to the board, this board or future boards, for approval. So I just don't want to cut it off and say, because IHSA doesn't sanction it, forget it, or you're not using our name. That's what I don't want to position.
There's opportunities under policy 890, which I know the board is also, the policy committee will be looking at for revision, that allow for affiliation. So we're not suggesting it would never happen by virtue of redlining policy 822. There are other ways to deal with it within the policy manual, but it seems to me, and policy seems to be echoing this, that 822 was created specifically for the Ice Devils, and since it's not being used by any other group, it can be subsumed by 880, 890, as well as any sort of agreement with that club or other clubs. And as much as I'd love to talk about hockey, this is not the appropriate forum. I couldn't use big boy words like I do when I watch hockey, Cynthia, but if you want to talk more about hockey in policy in the context of the Ice Devils specifically and what we need to do, if anything, with DuPage Stars, that's fine, but I think the IHSA question is outside the scope of policy at this point.
I don't see this as an IHSA thing at all. I see this as, is this a club that we are sponsoring? And if it's not a club that we're sponsoring, they should not be able to use our school name associated with our logo. And that DuPage Stars, all they're doing is they've got on their work. They're not emblazing their jerseys with our school's name and the logo for our school. So I just put that in a completely different category. I'm fully in favor of rescinding this policy, and for the exact reasons that I don't think we should allow organizations that are not under our control to use our marks are logos associated with a specific school name, which gives the impression that it is a sponsored or a club that's affiliated with our school. That's where I'm coming from on 822. Now, I'm not opposed to working with the hockey club here in determining a way that they can continue, but with very careful attention to the legal liability concerns that we've raised, and with a possible consideration of sunsetting in the future. I understand they have a big investment in uniforms and the like, but aside from that cost of uniforms, I don't see that there's a big issue with changing their name so that it's not a direct affiliation with the high school. That's just my own personal feeling about it, but.
All right, so
Marty, going to your point, talking about how, and I guess it's broadly in favor of rescinding 822, and we're using that as the example, both real and hypothetical, the hockey club as a organization that would be impacted. A couple of things here, but if we want people to have the ability to have those organizations and have that measure of pride in there, looking through some of the other policies that we have, we still need to have language that will necessarily address this, that would address the people coming to us and asking, we want to start the Hinsdale Central Equestrian Club. And we want to then, that's what we want to call it, the Hinsdale Central Equestrian Club. And maybe you have students from South say they want to do the same thing, the Hinsdale South Equestrian Clubs, distinct organizations. But if they come to us with a rationale, with a reason for existing as separate, whatever the case is, there should be something that addresses, much like 822 does, how they can potentially use the name, whether it's using the logo. I mean, I myself, in thinking about this over the last month, as we've been getting some more communication from the public on this, and it's been in some of these policy meetings, I view 822, whether we keep it or have it be subsumed by a different policy. I'm not opposed to the concept behind it. I am a proponent of actually having something like this that would have some measure of additional teeth in it that does protect the district. Indemnification language within an agreement, potentially even if we are allowing them to call themselves the Hinsdale Central or Hinsdale South, etc. For the right to use that, for the right to have the logo, even on the DuPage Stars website, which again, Georgia Tech, that they would have some sort of potentially payment to us as a licensing agreement to use that. Not saying this is a revenue center for the district in some fashion, or it would be an onerous cost to them, but that is part of the overall agreement that we would have in place at that point in time. Another question here, we know that there's only one group right now that is affected. The policy's been in place for 15 years. Of course, the district's been in place for a lot longer than that. What is the history beyond the Hinsdale Central Hockey Club with clubs that are named after Central or South, D86, etc., and that use our logos or names, etc.?
I can answer that. When I asked the two principals to do some research, there have been other clubs in the past. A ping pong just went away with the student graduating this year here at Hinsdale Central. There's been rowing and there's been sailing in the past. And a long time ago, Arwen found there was one at Hinsdale South, but it's been gone for a while. So there have been other associations that accessed 822 since the policy's been created.
So basically right now we have the benefit of only one group coming and speaking before us because of graduations and current interest, but that doesn't mean that in the future those same groups won't come back and want to again use this and potentially say, well, the historical precedent of half a century versus I see again the misperception risk there and the potential liability. I also have to believe that there's a probability that we can again craft something that's not a one-off agreement every time somebody comes to us that again protects the district, that has language in, again, teeth, real teeth in there. We know that other high schools have agreements like this with indemnification language, with requirements for insurance, and having this formalized in a policy. If we want to not call it 822, that's okay. Maybe there's something under, it's it's 891 and it's.
It is
something there.
890 and.
No, there's 890, but I mean, my understanding is that parent organizations and booster clubs, I guess we could consider this a parent organization.
Eric, I had discussion about this consistent with the Open Meetings Act with the Policy Committee Chairman Hersman. 890 is on the table for editing, and the comments that you're making with respect to 822 will be subsumed by 890. So it's not that it's going away. There will be discussion about those sorts of things because we want to have a vehicle for people or for clubs to approach us, and we can talk about that in the context of the existing policies.
So if I could just clarify for direction, because as a person who has obviously part of policy, the policy committee was making the recommendation to the full board to not allow organizations that are not affiliated with the district. So if you're part of 890, that means you are affiliated with the district, to use either school's name in the name of their club, sport, or whatever. So that's what was being brought to the full board. So I guess I'm trying to seek clarification. Where does the board currently stand on allowing something that is not school or district sponsored to use the word Central or South in its name?
Well, I think if 822 goes away, it's not allowed because they're not affiliated. But Eric's point was groups that are affiliated or sanctioned by the district, there will be a way to deal with that with existing or modified policy.
But that's, you said that right in your groups that are affiliated. This hockey club is not affiliated with the school.
I'm not disputing that.
Okay.
I'm agreeing that we should not allow entities that are not affiliated, sanctioned, blessed by, or otherwise approved by District 86 to use the name.
But I'm not sure if you have consensus with that, because I heard others feeling that you...
Okay. Kathleen's in favor of redlining 822. Eric, where are you at on 822?
I guess before we go any further, let's make sure everybody understands what we're talking about. And I think we just got to the crux of it, and that is, if we rescind 822, well, what we are saying is you cannot use our school names, our logos, unless you are affiliated with us. 890 addresses groups that are affiliated with us that we allow to use those logos. So I just want to make sure everybody understands. By rescinding 822, we are essentially saying that our policy is that groups that are not affiliated with us will not be able to use our school names along with our marks, our logos that give the impression that it's a school-sponsored activity. That's what I want to make clear.
Correct.
Okay? Just so everybody understands, that's what our recommendation is, and that's the rationale for rescinding it. 890 is a different issue. Those are groups that are associated with us.
But are you in favor if you are in favor of rescinding it, are you also in favor of creating a policy that does exist to allow organizations that are not affiliated with us with the legal distance, with the identification, with the know-how, that they could under approval? Or are you just a hard no?
I am a hard no, because I think then why get rid of the policy? Then why get rid of the policy? I am not opposed to working with this one existing group and discussing with them what options are available for them to continue to exist. I'm not opposed to that. I am opposed to creating a policy or practice that allows this going forward. Okay? So that I am.
Well, the reason we have these policies is so we don't have one-offs, right? We have general policies so we don't have unique things. So somebody like, well, I want to be like the hockey club, right? So I am in full, everyone knows where I stand on this because of what we just heard. So I guess I do not want to take anything away from this group or other ones in high standing, high moral, high academic endowments, all the things they do. If there's situations, I want to give people a path that go to school here and utilize and have pride in their school, because we don't sponsor it or say. So I guess, what does it take for the hockey team? What does it take for us to sponsor it? Is it they pay us $1 and therefore we're sponsored? Right, it's not that easy. So really what we're saying is these wonderful young men who came up, we're saying thanks but no thanks. Undo your logos, undo your jerseys, undo your everything.
All right, we're talking about two different things. I'm talking about the liability that we assume when we allow an outside organization to use everything that identifies themselves with us. And I am not in favor of continuing that practice by policy. I'm not in favor of allowing any other groups to do it. But I also understand the significant impact it will have on this existing group, and I am sensitive to that, and I am willing to work with them, work with our legal counsel to see what we can do. In my mind, I see it as a sunsetting of their using our marks, our labels, and that they might have to rebrand themselves so that they are not using our exact school name and our logo. But I'm open to a discussion with that. I'm not interested in creating a policy that allows other groups to do this, because then why rescind 822? Might as well just keep it right there, because that's essentially what that allows. So I'm not in favor of it. And if the feeling of the group is then we shouldn't allow the Ice Devils to do it, then I guess that would be a consequence of rescinding 822. But I'm also sympathetic to what they've raised, and I am receptive to exploring what we can do to allow them to continue to exist. But I don't look at this as ad infinitum. I'm looking at it as whatever costs they have, perhaps in uniforms or in other things, that equipment that has the logo on, that perhaps that's sunsetted after a particular period of time, that there is indemnification, that there is insurance coverage. But you know what, I'll leave that to the lawyers to figure out. What I'm saying is it may be a way to allow this particular group to sunset out of using our name. That I would be willing to look at, but I am not in favor of creating another 822 type policy that will allow this to occur in the future. I'm just not in favor of that.
Yeah, and I would be remiss that we talk about the liability and the risk but I would be remiss if all of a sudden in 2 years the Hinsdale Central ice hockey team wins the state and the papers say that there are 7 academic, honor roll kids, and they have this charity, and we miss out on that great press. We're so worried about the liability, and I think we need to have some language in there that distances us from liability. That's buttoned up, but here we could potentially miss the opportunity to have great recognition of an upstanding organization that utilizes our name, albeit not, quote, associated with us or sanctioned by us, but we're gonna potentially miss out on that?
I think that in the same way we are expressing that organizations can't have it both ways, we also can't have it both ways. And I think that's kind of where that falls. And I agree with how you had expressed it as well, Kathleen.
Great. Eric, where are you at on 822? Up or down?
Because of the things I've said and with Marty's, at the moment I think we should revise 822, but I do not feel we should strike it. I feel we should add teeth to it to allow it to continue. If we allow a one-off for the hockey club, if we were addressing this 3 or 5 or 7 years ago, or whatever it might have been, we could have had 4 organizations that were speaking in front of us in very recent history since this was created, all then having to have some sort of a one-off agreement with them. And then again, a year or 2 years later, it's not for me whether they win, it's then it's putting those future students potentially not quite as a disadvantage. They could still have that club, but there is some sort of pride in ownership of a school. Again, we own it because we're the district, but I feel that we can come to I feel that the policy itself can have an addition in there that allows these to exist, unaffiliated organizations to exist, to use some of our whether it's only our signage or just the name and maybe the devil logo itself is taken off, but to exist there and not have to create any one-offs.
Okay, Eric's in favor of leaving it with modification. Keith, where are you at?
And I'm sorry if I was focused on the wrong thing or something, but do we have, Cynthia and Kathleen, a sense of to what degree, and Tammy, or anybody, a sense to what degree other districts allow affiliations of this kind? And so, I'm thinking I know there was an interest in a rowing club or whatever, but I would not want to be, it's nice to be able to do it. I think it needs to, I'm concerned about the liability standpoint of it, legal and otherwise. And I would not want to be out of step or significantly out of step. If it's a situation where it's a reasonably, it happens with some regularity at other districts or in the state, I would tend to think, let's find a way to do it. I don't know.
Sure. When we were doing our research and working with Heather, there are not other districts that have a policy. It appears that there are intergovernmental agreements, one-offs, and there's no board policy. We were the only one that she was aware of that even had a policy on its books.
So in that case, then I would be in line, I think, with where Kathleen is at, which is we rescind 822. And that is something I wasn't sure about, was can we do one-offs without a policy being in place? If that's the case, and if we can accommodate, and I would not, and this is for later discussion, but just so to tip my hand of where I'm at for now anyways, I would not be in favor of sunsetting them. I'd be in favor of having something that makes us comfortable, protects us, and do a one-off with the hockey club with, it might be a tough road to hope for somebody else to take down the road to convince a future board to have another one-off, but that could be done on a one-off basis if somebody makes a compelling argument to us.
So where are you at in 822?
I just said it. Rescinding it with looking at a one-off for the hockey team in particular.
Yeah. Thank you. Marty?
I'm going to put a couple caveats on it. I would, if we do not have a path to allow currently the hockey organization to continue to utilize it, if we don't have a path, I would not be in favor of rescinding it. I know this is a first read, it'll come back, but I don't also want to have a rescind and then have a period where we're trying to figure it out. I don't want anyone to be in limbo. So a little bit two-sided coin, Mr. Cannon, but I am not in favor of rescinding it if we do not have a path for right now the hockey team and possibly others. If we don't have a path, if we do have a path, I would be in favor of rescinding it.
I made my comment earlier, so I think you all know where I stand. I'm not in favor of 822 because I'm not in favor of allowing for other non-sanctioned groups to use any of their district names. And because, like all lawyers, having said that, I am going to try and work with policy on recognizing the Ice Devils in the context that they've been existing for 50 years. If there was another group that wasn't sanctioned but was using the name, I'd be doing the same thing. But I'll take the counterpoint to Eric. There's only one group now, which is why I think now is the time to extinguish 822, subject to either an IGA, I'm not sure it's an intergovernmental agreement because it's not another governmental entity, but be that as it may, it's form over substance, working something out with them. So I think policy's got a 5-1 on extinguishing 822 and working with, even though it's not a vote, it's just where we're headed in that direction, trying to work with Ice Devils to work something out prospectively. And with that, we can move into robust discussion about the complete policy manual at this time that I know every one of you read with the proposed revisions and different colored pages. Are there any questions about any of the policy changes that were presented in the entire book revision? And do either Kathleen or Cynthia have any comments about the rationale behind it? And if you don't, that's okay. You could simply say it needed to be updated because it hasn't been addressed in a while, at which point I would say, do any other board members have comments or questions?
Thank you for ripping to give me an opportunity to collect my thoughts. I'm just still segueing from 822. Okay. They say balcony level, 50,000 feet level. That's all I'm going to give you, okay? Our policy manual is sorely in need of a good, solid look-through and with a reconciliation with the IASB policies, which are best practice, which are adopted by the vast majority of school districts in Illinois. But at the same time, we need to do a very careful look because there are some policies that are what we call unique policies that we have adopted that are not press policies, and we needed to take a careful look at them to see if they were consistent with what we are adopting from press. So this was not just adopting press. What it was is reconciling our existing policies with press and maintaining the unique policies that we needed to maintain, but ensuring that they were consistent with the policies that we were adopting from press. So that's what we did as the broad description of the task. We spent a lot of time on it, and I want to give a lot of credit and support to our wonderful Deb Kudrowski, who was so helpful in pulling all of these moving parts together and presenting them to us at each of our policy committee meetings in a way that we could work with them in an effective, efficient manner. And that it takes an incredible skill. And so I just want to give her a lot of credit for what she did, because she is the one who helped us go through this process in an efficient fashion. But you don't need to do the work that we did. We did go through all of these policies and looked at them very carefully. So if you trust us on the thoroughness that we did, I'm not going to go through any of them, but we did go through a very careful process and consulted with our legal counsel on any ones that raised legal consideration. So that's it.
And just for everyone, board members, in the administrative content, there is the Google Doc that was sort of our captain of our ship, and that would tell you section by section, and you could just sort of see for yourself if we kept, changed what we accepted, if it was a blend, and any kind of comments from legal. That was sort of driving the entire process for each individual policy. And I'd also like to thank Deb and I probably had no less than 25 meetings with end users, and so certainly would be remiss if I did not include Josh, Keith, Dominic, Brad, Chris, the building principals, the APIs, directors of guidance, directors of deans. There's a lot of people who we would meet in prep for our policy committee, and many times we brought them to policy so that they could explain, particularly in section 6 and section 7, and could really bring the policy to life to help our board members understand the practical side of it. And so certainly it was a big team effort to get here.
And I would like to extend my incredible gratitude to the entire team. Deb pulled all the written pieces together, but the input that we got from all of those other team members, and then having it brought to us in a very efficient, well-organized fashion made our work immeasurably easier. But there was so much behind-the-scenes background work that Superintendent Prentice headed up, and so they made this a really, I have to say, a pleasurable task, and I'm so glad that we're nearing the end of it.
Thank you. Moving on.
May I interrupt quickly? I'm sorry. I was just advised that on our consent agenda, there is one correction before we take the vote on that. Under personnel, there is one employee identified as Hinsdale Central, and they're actually going to be at Hinsdale South. And so just with that correction.
Do I have a motion from a board member to pull 11.1 from the consent agenda so that we can clarify which school the employee will be working at?
So moved.
Second.
Motion held, second Hanson. Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
Before we do that, if I just have a question on another one, do I have to pull it? Or
yes.
Then can we, thanks. Can we also pull for a quick
No, there's a motion pending.
Oh, sorry.
And we're taking a vote. If you'd like to pull another item, you have the opportunity to make a motion after we take the vote.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, the motion is held.
Motion held, second Hanson to pull 11.1.
Okay. Member Hanson. Aye. Member Held.
Aye.
Member Turek?
Aye.
Member Camden?
Aye.
Member Cheval? Member Herschman?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries 6-0. And before Mr. Turk makes his motion, let me at least explain what the consent agenda is, and then he can pull that which he wishes to. The consent agenda items consist of items, minutes, business affairs, personnel, and administrative tasks that are routine in nature or that have been discussed with the board and are now presented for approval. Any item may be pulled from the consent agenda for further discussion and consideration. All items on the consent agenda are approved with a single motion unless removed before the roll call vote. Does any board member wish to remove anything from the consent agenda in addition to 11.1?
Yes, I'd like to pull 10.1.
May I have a second? I'll second. Motion Turek, second Camden. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Member Held?
Aye.
Member Turek?
Aye.
Member Camden?
Aye.
Member Cheval? Aye. Member Herschman? Aye. Member Hanson?
Aye.
The ayes have it, 6-0. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with 10.1 and 11.1 pulled?
Motion.
Motion Cheval, second Held. Madam Secretary.
Member Turek?
Aye.
Member Camden?
Aye.
Member Cheval? Aye. Member Herschman? Aye. Member Hanson? Aye. Member Held?
Aye.
Ayes have it, 6-0. Moving to 10.1, Mr. Turek, you asked this to be pulled. Would you like to discuss?
It's going to be very quick. Josh, is there a certain amount, a max we can put in any one depository? And if that is the case, it seems like we don't have enough spread out.
So there's a number of different mechanisms we use to guarantee the funds. Generally, for the most part, we don't use so obviously you have the FDIC insurance is what most people are familiar with on an individual level. There's different mechanisms where you can have other forms of collateral used to secure the funds. So like when we work with Wintrust, they get, basically it's an additional insurance on top of so most of our funds are liquid assets or CDs in the past have been held with Wintrust. So they provide an additional insurance to cover those funds so that they are secured, anything that's above and beyond the FDIC limits.
Got it. Okay, thanks. And that from our other district, maybe we didn't know that rule because we spread it to 50, 60, 70 different ones to keep under that limit, and not seeing that many and knowing the budget is much larger here, I wanted to make sure that we were covered, which I assume, knowing you, we are.
We have a motion to approve 10.1.
So moved.
Motion Turek, second Cheval. Madam Secretary.
Member Turek?
Aye.
Member Camden?
Aye.
Member Cheval? Aye. Member Hanson? I'm sorry, Member Herschman? Aye. Member Hanson?
Aye.
Member Held?
Aye. Ayes have it, 6-0, motion carries. Madam Secretary, what is it in 11.1 that needs to be corrected?
I'm not going to be able to say the name right, so maybe I'll have Arwen say it.
Principal Lip, thank you.
Thank you. I believe it, just to be a typo, but our employee, Evelina Dabashevska, it's listed that she's going to be working at Hinsdale Central, but she will actually be working at Hinsdale South. So just instead of saying Hinsdale Central, should say Hinsdale South, and everything else is correct in the same.
May I have a motion adopting what Principal Lip just said?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Turek, second Held. Madam Secretary.
Member Camden?
Aye.
Member Cheval? Aye. Member Herschman? Aye. Member Hanson? Aye. Member Held?
Aye.
Member Turek?
Aye.
Ayes have it, 6-0, motion carries. We are now on to action items. 14.1. Finance Committee discussed the fiscal year 2021 budget at the June 17 meeting as noted in the report. The budget is now presented for board action. The Chair would entertain a motion to set a public hearing on September 24th, 2020 concerning the fiscal year 2021 tentative budget. Post the tentative budget as presented and authorize expenditures and purchases during the first fiscal quarter in accordance with the tentative budget until the final budget is adopted.
So moved. Second.
Motion Held, second Cheval. Mr. Stevenson, do you have any discussion points? Don't feel compelled. No would work too.
Oh, okay. So we did have discussion. We walked through the tentative budget at the Finance Committee meeting. If any of the board members would like, I can walk through the tentative budget or address any specific questions that anyone may have. If not, I will make no further comments.
It should be more like a jog if you have any questions. But Mr. Held, under withering cross-examination of CFO Stevenson during the June Finance Committee meeting, walked through it pretty significantly. And as I indicated earlier, Josh has done yeoman's work in making sure that what we anticipate to be an interesting year by way of revenue, we're protected. So any other board questions on this? We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Member Chavall. Aye. Member Herschman. Aye. Member Hanson. Aye. Member Held.
Aye.
Member Turek.
Aye.
Member Camden.
Aye. Ayes have it, 6-0, motion carries. And perhaps what is the single most significant thing I will do as a board member this year, I would entertain a motion to award bid 21-001 copier paper to Vertiv Operating Company in the amount of $40,297.25.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Turek, second Hanson. Madam Secretary, please call the roll. Or hang on before we do that. Josh, is there a need for any discussion? Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Member Herschman. Aye. Member Hanson. Aye. Member Held.
Aye.
Member Turek.
Aye.
Member Camden.
Aye.
Member Chavall.
Aye. Ayes have it, motion carries 6-0. May I have a motion to accept the $1,000 donation from the City of Darien?
So moved.
Motion Turek, second by Held. Principal Picorni-Lip, I would like some discussion on this, please.
I would love to talk about this. I would say probably around January, we were approached by the mayor of Darien, Joe Marchese, asking if we had students who would be interested in painting a mural in Darien City Hall. So we approached students in our Art Honor Society under the direction of our art teacher and club sponsor, Jen Belmonte. So the students worked on and off for months completing the mural. So there's actually a picture there of our teacher and the mayor. They didn't finish until kind of quarantine was officially started, so they were able to take the picture with masks on. And so our students were really happy to do it. We're really proud to have our work highlighted right in Darien City Hall. And in order to kind of say thank you, the City of Darien donated $1,000 that we, our Art Honor Society will use.
Thank you. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, you call the roll, please.
Member Hanson. Aye. Member Held.
Aye.
Member Turek.
Aye.
Member Camden.
Aye.
Member Chavall.
Aye.
Member Herschman. Aye.
Ayes have it, 6-0, motion carries. May I have a motion to accept a $1,000 donation from the American Psychological Association?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Turek, second by Hanson. Principal Lip, do you have discussion on this? I know it was in good news. Is there anything you wish to add?
I will actually. I just wanted to echo, and it is in the press release, but that awards like this really are won by a collective effort. So I just wanted to give a big thank you again to our staff members who all were involved in working on this. And the other piece that I just want to highlight, given the current national climate, I'm really proud of the work that we were celebrated and recognized for in our work with racial equity. I know it came up in audience communication, and we've been communicating with several of our alumni on kind of getting their ideas on how to make sure that our work on racial equity continues and recognize that we are at the very, very beginning stages of that work. So I'm really proud of every part of the award, but felt the need to highlight that part tonight. Is that something we're especially proud of?
I particularly appreciate that in light of some of the emails the board has been receiving over the past couple of weeks. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
Member Held.
Aye.
Member Turek.
Aye.
Member Camden.
Aye.
Member Chavall.
Aye.
Member Herschman. Aye. Member Hanson. Aye.
Ayes have it, 6-0, motion carries, and congratulations again, Arwen. May I have a motion to accept the donation of a Pearl River piano from a community member?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Hanson, second Cheval. Mr. Walsh, God bless you. You've been hanging in there remotely. Would you like to add a comment on this? Not the least of which is answering the question of, has the donor requested to be anonymous? And if so, fine, we'll respect that. But if not, could you tell us who it is?
I actually don't have the answer to whether they wanted to remain anonymous or not. I just know they wanted to make a donation to our fine arts departments and let Patrick Mogg sort of assess where it would best fit. I can get a name and bring it back at a future date, but I do not have it at the moment.
Not wanting Mr. Cheval to stand alone and demonstrating ignorance at the meeting tonight, is this a concert piano? Is it an upright? Do you know?
I am not 100% sure because I did not see it when my assistant principal Ryan Maida worked with it. Whether it was a grand piano, I don't think it's a grand piano. It might be a baby grand, something along those lines. Sorry, I didn't have it.
No, that's okay. Thank you. Tammy, do you have anything to add?
Just that I was on Google Images to look at what it may look like. And it looks like there's several choices, so we'll have to wait till it shows up.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
Member Turek.
Aye.
Member Camden.
Aye.
Member Cheval.
Aye.
Member Hertzman.
Aye.
Member Hanson.
Aye.
Member Held.
Aye. Ayes have it, 6-0, motion carries. My president's report will be waived because I have a lot of other talking to do in the context of committee appointments and other things. Per Board Policy 2:150, committees, the board president makes all committee appointments. At our last meeting, as well as prior to those meetings, consistent with the limitations on the Open Meetings Act, I asked board members to submit their interest with respect to committee participation. I'm going to announce the committee chairs tonight simply because I don't have my notes with all the people sitting on the committees. If you recall what you promised me you would do and would like to say that publicly, God bless. But with respect to the committees that the board has adopted for the coming year, closed minutes committee meeting, the chair will be board member Turek. ISBA committee, chair will be board member Hersman. Facilities committee will be chaired by board member Cheval. Policy will remain chaired, by board member Hersman, and thank you for continuing to do that. Mr. Held will now chair the finance committee. I will remain as a member. HR committee will now be chaired by Ms. Hanson. I know Mr. Cheval has expressed interest in serving on that committee, as well as board member Pollock. I'm going to ask Mr. Cheval to serve on the new security committee. And I don't recall, Kathleen, did you request to be on that committee as well?
HR, yeah.
Okay, no, not HR, security.
Okay, I used to be on HR and I expected to continue being on HR. I sent you an email indicating my interest in it.
Okay, well then you spoke
But if we-
before board member Pollock did, so it will be Hanson, Chair, Cheval, and Hersman. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. Board member Turek has just advised he would like to assist board member Cheval as a committee member on security.
To be clear, I think we said security and tech. Did we say that? I didn't see it listed there on the board doc.
Because I shorthanded it as security, but security and technology, thank you. I will remain chair until the conclusion of the HHSTA negotiation, simply for continuity. Members Held and Hersman will continue with me in that regard. Member Held will chair the SEIU negotiation committee. I've not heard from others if they wish to sit on that committee. I see board member Hersman nodding her head.
I want to be on the support staff negotiation.
Not SEIU.
I don't think we need two board members.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. Okay, so at the present, it's board member Held who will be both chairing and the sole member. Finally, HHSSSA will be chaired by Held, and I understand Hersman. Well, that's not what my notes reflected. I'm sorry. Kathleen, you get to be the chair, and I think maybe the sole member on that one as well.
I think it makes sense only to have one board member on.
That's fine.
those
I'm not
other
opposed to
ones.
that.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to fight to a duel on it,
Any other committee assignments you wish to make a matter of public record presently?
I will maintain my chairmanship of the insurance committee.
Thank you.
My
I
group will
neglected
be
that
on
one.
there. It's iron right now.
And just to clarify, currently, Turek and board member Hersman are on the closed session minutes. Did I hear you say that?
I did not
to me?
realize Hersman was as well.
Yes.
issue with the chairman. Am I doing it now?
I will gladly
Yeah.
relinquish the chair responsibilities
So
to you,
kind of
Mr. Turek.
Oh, that's really kind of.
Division of honors here.
Well, Mr. Cheval will be the chair. Marty and I will both remain on facilities as members. Policy, I know Cynthia, you wish to continue with Kathleen on policy. Finance would be Eric and I. Anybody wish to serve with Eric on insurance? This is fascinating work. Marty, you should really consider that. HR, we talked about. Security, we've got a couple of folks. There's room for another seat at that table if another board member wants security and tax.
I was actually interested in taking the third seat if that's okay.
You may have to arm wrestle Kathleen. I thought she may. Oh, you didn't?
No, I don't
Okay.
think she, yeah.
All right, so we filled out
Pistol's
security
a
and
dog,
tax.
Kathleen.
Okay, Cheval, Turk, and Held on that one, and the other ones are, oh, pardon me. I really did
I'm sorry, who
misplace
is the chair on security and technology?
Cheval. For PTAC, Cynthia will be, the board member Hanson will be the chair. I didn't get any other volunteers for PTAC. Well, we could have more. The problem, frankly, is when we get back to some semblance of normal, they tend to meet midday, so it's hard for folks that have
If
a
you're looking for
JOB.
another board member, I would be happy to serve on that because I am available during the day if you want a second board member.
Yeah, there'll be 8:30 meetings this year.
PM.
AM, because the students will be 8:30 to
Yeah,
10.
that would be fine for me.
Fabulous, thank you. And to the extent I can drop in on those, I would like to. I like to see the community involvement and talk to some of those folks as well. Any other committees that I've neglected? Sorry.
The special committee for community engagement?
Do I have to read the full list? I'm looking at.
15.5 is an agenda.
It is. Do we have all the names in 15.5? It was.
Will Marty continue as chair?
I'm sorry?
Will member Turek continue as chair?
Yes, Marty has done admirable work as the Special Facilities Committee Chair, and he will continue in that regard. I do not see the names of the committee members.
Agenda 15.5.
Oh, 15.5, I'm sorry. All right, well, we'll get to that in due course. With that, we will move on to 15.2, the IASB, Governing Board Representative. I believe.
I'd like to continue doing that.
Okay, I believe Ms. Erzban expressed interest. Anybody wishing to duel or arm wrestle or whatever your feat of strength may be? Hearing none, Kathleen, congratulations. You beat down a raucous crowd to maintain that. Thank you for your service. That is important. We do get a lot of significant information from IASB, and I appreciate Kathleen's work in that regard. Therefore, she will be named the ISBA Governing Board Representative. Because you all haven't heard me talk enough, we will now move to the Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee. The District 86 Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee is a standing committee of the board composed of students, parents/guardians, faculty, staff, administrators, and board members. Who is it that doesn't like the Oxford comma when we prepare my notes here? I notice every time it's excluded, Deb. We might have to talk about that. I'm a fan of it. The group's charge is directed... I'm sorry? That's right. The group's charge is directed by board policy in the Illinois School Code. Candidates interested in serving on PTAC were asked to complete an application form in mid-May. We had nearly 125 applicants from students, staff, parents/guardians submitted to the PTAC committee chairman, Ms. Hanson, and Superintendent Prentice. PTAC committee chair Hanson, Superintendent Prentice, both principals Walsh and Lip, and HHSTA leadership propose the following members be appointed to PTAC for 2021. I accept their recommendations and am glad to appoint the following members to PTAC for 2021. Student PTAC members: Adit Basvar, Abigail Shute, Mary Lavarado, Madison Lipman, Luke Terrell, Dylan Tang, Aubrey de Guzman, Carson Katecki, Mikhail Essa, Shreya Mehta, Fuzan Amjad, and Andrew Metzger. The parent PTAC members are Madhu Reddy, Lana Johnson, Isis Jackson, Miriam Khan, Jania Andrulius, Patricia Schiappa, Victoria Hinderleiter, Cassandra Fisher, Teza Cobb, Susan Owens, Daniel Leventhal, and Tiffany Whalen. Staff PTAC members are Kristen Bronke, Susan Grady, Allison Fish, Aaron Palmer, Alan McLeod, Abby Green, Amanda Burton, Ashley Yurchek, Kelly Van Hout, Michael Anderson, Casey Dunleavy, and John Richardson. In August of 2019, the board and the Facilities Committee discussed the creation of a special committee regarding community engagement with the construction process. The objective of this committee was to engage and leverage the expertise of the District 86 community by involving them in the construction process. I hereby appoint the following committee members to the special committee for 2021. Chair will remain Marty Turek, Kirk Admire, Steve Cashman, Lisa Lundgren, William Lyons, Tamika Edwards, Ehab Elkak, I believe is the pronunciation, John Ochoa, Greg Orput, and Jennifer Planson. At this time, I'm going to refill my water bottle and turn it over to Superintendent Prentice for her report and comments.
Thank you. I have just a couple comments before we, when I and Bill remotely provide our update for the board on the reentry committee. But since our last board meeting in May, the Board of Ed has received multiple communications from both alum and community members regarding diversity education at the high school level. As part of our district strategic plan, the need for a district cultural and equity committee was an outcome of our plan and is located in goal 3. COVID-19 caused the March kickoff meeting to be canceled. I do look forward to our July 7th meeting that we have, where we will have parents, board member Camden, Hersman, and Hansen, staff and students begin this very important work. The district is unwavering in our commitment to achieving racial and cultural equity and inclusion across our district. Next, construction. I had the opportunity today to walk both campuses. As you know, we have our construction meetings every Thursday. And so today we started out over at at South and then came to Central. And I would certainly encourage any board member, if you have not had the opportunity, there are some pretty amazing engineering feats going on, particularly at Hinsdale Central. Just the space, for example, if you recall where the addition is going for the pool, at that time was a retention pond. And so where they are creating this huge storm trap is underneath the soccer field, and that is in the middle going on right now. And so to watch it is pretty amazing. And so in just engaging with some of the team from Pepper, it's a fairly large storm trap, and so it's one of the bigger ones that has been created. And so right now the entire soccer field is up in a mound of dirt, and then down below is the storm trap that they are building. The other piece that was an engineering interesting thing to watch, they are currently putting in all the helical piles for the pool. And so is it 50, Josh? 50, 75? I don't remember how many of these steel pipes they have to be drilling and augering. So to watch them do that and just figure out how that works was pretty amazing. The other engineering feat that is going on, if you recall, they have to redo connect all of the water drainage and sewer pipes. And so what they are literally doing right now over sort of by the pool tennis court area is this company is digging, going 15 feet down and go vertical outside and eventually go under the courtyard. You can imagine that. Then they're going to move all that equipment in the courtyard and continue, because they then have to turn and go all the way to the courtyard to 55th. And then they have to go on 55th. This is all 15 feet below the earth, and make all these things match up. It's fascinating. And so just to sort of watch all that in action. So if you do come, wear good shoes, because you are getting to practice all different elevations and rocks and dirts and things. It was also fun at Hinsdale South. You will not believe what the library looks like now. It is just stunning. And so they're to drywalling right now, just the open and the air, and it's just truthfully amazing. We were also down in the special education area again. It's transformative, and so it's just truly exciting to see. We also at Hinsdale South went over to went into some of the classrooms that are a part of our classrooms that we're piloting, that will eventually have, like, with the different furniture, paint, electrical, and those are farther along at South than they are at Central, and then both of the athletic fields. So South is a little bit farther along, but just to see the artificial turf and they finished the striping and the painting, it's just tremendous. So once again, just always, send me a text if you're available, and we'll let the crew know, but it's certainly worth your time. It does take very much 2 hours to get both campuses done, or if you want to do one leg one week and go to the other school the other week, we can certainly work that out. But it truly is a spectacular thing to see. And the third thing, I would certainly like to thank all of the staff, students, and parents that applied for consideration for PTAC. I think that is phenomenal, the number of applicants that we had, and we are a very fortunate district to have so many individuals volunteer their time to serve on their committee, and our first committee meeting will be July 9th. So with that, Ms. Picorni and I are going to come to the front, and Mr. Walsh is participating in this presentation as well. So Keith, we're going to test your skills here navigating between Ms. Picorni, I, and Mr. Walsh as we present our update.
Carpet. I know, you guys are coming. Marty, you want to do some hand puppets? You got the screen over there. Yeah. Or are we doing the switch over so Bill is brought in on WebEx? Yeah, if you're going to use the screen for a PowerPoint, we should turn the camera. I think you just turn the camera. I don't think you have to move the tripod.
Pillars.
It looks like it's moving, yeah.
We were here back, I was here back on May 14th and let you know that we were kicking off a committee to start this work while we were patiently waiting for guidance from the state regarding both phase 3 and phase 4. And so our purpose tonight is just to give you an update what that committee work has been up to. Last time I let you know that we had sent out survey data. That's part of the feedback that we'll be sharing today. I have some feedback from some of the work that we've been doing around facilities and working with other districts around what is it that August will look like. But certainly our focus today is to give you an update on the committee, what we do know from an instructional perspective. So I'm going to have Arwen first start, and then we will continue on with Mr. Walsh.
Okay. So this committee, I'll just kind of echo what Ms. Prentice just said. You can see all the names up here, and I won't read them, but I just wanted to say, on behalf of me and Mr. Walsh, we are very proud to be part of this committee. It's a really nice example of administration, teachers, both HHSTA leaders, and classroom teachers, along with our department chairs, really coming together to dive into what is the safest and most effective way to open school for our children, and our nurses are part of this team also. So that said, our team wanted to start, we actually had a meeting yesterday, once the ISB guidance came out. So the ISB guidance was released to the public at the exact same time it was released to schools. So we had been working in anticipation of that guidance, but just as a reminder that it was all released to everyone at the same time. We did not have advanced preview. But one thing we wanted to point out, and our team has had this equity lens all along, and it is part of the official ISB guidance. So it just says ISB urges schools and districts to plan for and implement transition plans to in-person instruction through the lens of equity. ISB issued an equity statement there, which you can read. And I also wanted to share a quote on equity that we've used with our team that helps kind of define the difference. And it just says, "The route to achieving equity will not be accomplished through treating everyone equally. It will be achieved by treating everyone just according to their circumstances." So that's from Paula Dressel from the Race Matters Institute. But in this case, it matters because it's looking at each child and what do they need to be successful in school, whether we're remote or hybrid or our traditional in-person instruction. We will always lead with that equity lens. And that is now part of ISB's issues to us as well, which we embrace. When our team first started kind of under that global principle of equity, our team landed on that any decision we make for a remote model, hybrid model, or fully in-person model, that we will commit to these principles. So it just says, in District 86, we believe that a non-traditional learning environment will prioritize the health and safety of students and staff. And I just want to say, I mentioned this actually last time I presented about strategic plan. We were very intentional about making this first. So first and foremost, we knew that any decision we were going to make would prioritize the health and safety of students and staff. And we felt it was important to have the guiding principles established before we started with all the details. So it goes on, talks about foster personal well-being and mental health of students and staff, provide cohesive and purposeful, varied and flexible instruction and assessment to support meaningful student learning and growth, empower students to be engaged, responsible, and accountable while building self-management and independent learning skills, provide consistent communication to our community, and ensure also that students are making connections with each other. So that was something we heard a lot from our students, was how important school was for those connections. So we know that even if we happen to need to be remote, that we will make sure that that connection piece is there. So those are the principles that we're using for everything we're doing. I'm going to turn it over to Principal Walsh now, and he will kind of lead the discussion that our team did of taking a very deep dive into the survey data we received from our community on our experience with remote learning in the spring.
Thank you, Principal Picarni. I appreciate it. Superintendent Prentice and members of the Board of Education, thank you for allowing me to present virtually today. My family has experienced a COVID-19 exposure, and if I were at Central today, I would be risking all of you with a nasty virus that is wreaking havoc upon our world. So I present today virtually. Thank you for allowing me to do so. As the Recovery, Revitalization, and Restore Committee began their work to prepare for a return to school plan, we started with a thorough analysis of the preliminary pre-decisional remote learning day feedback survey. The slide that you are looking at represents a few quotes from students, parents, and staff. The theme you may take away from this slide is that there was a wide mix of perspectives about remote learning this past spring. Some loved it, some did not. Some mentioned there's room for improvement. Some thought we did the best we could. However, we know as a district committee and as a school team that we can do better than we did in the spring. Upon reflection, our staff recognized that where we want to be when we are in a remote learning 2.0 environment, and this survey provided us that opportunity. Keith, you can go to the next slide. In addition, I wanted to bring up to your attention, this slide represents a Hinsdale Central student named Isabella Zhu, who was an honor student and an active member of Hinsdale Central's Habitat for Humanity and marching band. In the spring of our pandemic, Isabella conducted a research project using her social media outlets, focused on the pandemic's impact on teenagers. At our June 10 Recovery, Revitalization, Restore meeting, Isabella shared her data. Isabella presented the unheard voices that are impacted by the decisions we make as school officials on a regular basis during this pandemic. Her presentation gave our committee further insight into the teenage perspective of remote learning. She enabled the team, as you will see later, to reflect and foster a remote learning environment that will promote academic growth as we move forward. Tammy, let me turn the presentation back to you.
Thank you, Bill. This slide is just to, as a point in time, that about 48 hours ago, the state dropped the phase 4 guidance, which basically allows us to start considering in-person instruction for more than groups of 10. If you can go to the next slide. Within there are all sorts of subtopics. What's important that I wanted to point out before we get into some of the instructional framework pieces is that there are many things in here. If you take the time to read the 60-page missive, though, you will see that many times it uses the phrase, if possible, in consideration, consult with local. So what I want you to know, while this was important first step, it is respectfully less than helpful in many, many very important areas when we go back to our primary guiding principle. And so what I want you to know is, yes, we scrambled. We reached out to our 28+ committee members and said, hey, who's available? And they hopped on a call Wednesday morning, less than 24 hours after the release. We asked them to please read it so that all the work that we have been doing, which Bill and Arlen will continue to go and share with you, that we could start saying, is there anything that's in here that is just so outside that we had not been discussing yet? But I think it's really important for the community and the board to know all school districts have a lot of work to do with legal, with our DuPage County Health Department, because there's many, many things in here that is not helpful. And so I think that's one, based on, we received a few communications recently from our stakeholders, and I want to make it very, very clear, all school districts in DuPage County have a lot of work to do because this guidance document does not give a lot of clear direction. It gives big picture, but always refers back to and uses many phrases if possible. So with that in mind, Keith, can you turn to the next slide? As I mentioned back in May 14th, we are not an island. I have made a very deliberate effort to remain very connected to many different groups. And I mentioned them back in May. And since I presented this information in May, I can tell you on a regular basis, I have a weekly standing call with every DuPage superintendent on Mondays, K through 12. Who joins that call in addition to those superintendents is Darlene Rossetti from the ROE and Karen, who leads the health department. Those are more global things because that obviously impacts a K-5 campus is very different than a high school campus in terms of things, but we are sharing and collaborating. Every Friday, I have a standing 1-hour call with our high school DuPage superintendents in DuPage County. It's also important to know that both Arwen and Bill have regular calls with members of the WSC or athletic conference. So what's important about that is DuPage County superintendents are extremely interested in working together in making sure our guidance, for example, if Hinsdale Central has a positive COVID, our response should be the same thing if it happened at Downers North. And so we are going to continue to operate that way and at those high-level procedural things to make sure that DuPage County stays united, both in athletics and co-curriculars. The other individuals, every other Friday, we had an emergency meeting yesterday, but I meet with our feeder superintendents because we have a desire to all be together around our communication and what it is that we're doing, because obviously what the high school does absolutely impacts our K-8 feeders. An example of that collaboration, because we are so large, we have the ability to sometimes get information and look at things differently. A couple weeks ago, we put an RFI out for face masks. I felt very confident that that was probably going to be a requirement. It was a requirement. We found that out Tuesday. Josh's office through the procurement process did that. That's something that our feeders, they just don't have the manpower to do. So we have already over 20 businesses that responded. Our staff right now is evaluating because they actually sent samples. You'd be surprised what $7 will buy you for a mask. It's everything from soup to nuts, and the quality is all over the place. In my call yesterday, though, all of our feeders said, Tammy, tell us what you're going to do. We don't have the time, effort, energy to do that, and send us the top 3 businesses after you've done your research, and we'll be more than happy to do a large group buy, and perhaps we could get a better price. So that's just one example of collaboration, of trying to work together as we figure out what we need to do come August. The last, I wanted to give a nod to, if you remember, Dorothy McCarty, she's part of Cotter. Cotter Consulting is working on this with other universities and schools. They have been providing that service to us for free. Dorothy and I have met multiple times around that facility piece of being ready to return to school. So I think what's important to know that whatever August looks like, it's no longer school as usual. It is a new way of doing school. So with that, I will turn it back over.
Thank you, Superintendent Prentice. As the Recovery, Revitalization, and Restore Committee plans for a return to school in-person learning environment, we are walking through the ISB Illinois Department of Public Health document and all of its recommendations. These recommendations were provided to us on June 23rd in the late afternoon. The committee has met multiple times during this global pandemic, most recently on Wednesday morning, or Tuesday morning, I should say. We recognize that the most powerful and impactful way, meaningful way to promote student growth is through in-person instruction. But we also know that during a public health crisis, we must take purposeful steps to ensure a return to school in person is both safe and sanitary. The Illinois State Board of Education and Illinois Department of Public Health provided many recommendations, as Superintendent stated, that will guide our planning, but the overarching themes are here on this slide. PPE, the number of individuals you can have in any one space, social distancing, health screening, and then cleaning and disinfection. As we approach those bullets and the vast array of information inside this document, we are keeping those guidelines, guiding principles that Principal Capone presented a little earlier. Keith, you can go to the next slide. A return to school hybrid model will require that we as a school community can address the matters presented in the previous slide, but recognize that some elements cannot be overcome, leading us to a hybrid model. In a return to school hybrid model, we're looking to create a school schedule with students moving between remote learning and in-person learning on campus. In a return to school hybrid model, we may have groups of students that transition between in-person and remote instruction. In addition, the teaching complexity and the teaching planning required of a hybrid model may require us to have days where staff can meet with small groups to address academic, behavioral, and other social and emotional learning. Whichever way we find in-person or hybrid, our goal is, though, to provide academic growth. Keith, you can go to the next slide. We should all anticipate that at some point a remote learning environment will be required due to the current public health crisis. A return to a phase 1, 2, or 3 of the Restore Illinois plan could very well require a return to remote learning. As we are designing a remote learning plan 2.0, we are discussing the feedback we receive from students, staff, and parents, as well as using our guiding principles to focus our plan discussions. As you can see and read, some academic topics we are discussing include, but is not limited to, the length of a class, social emotional learning, time of a school day, the schedule of the school day, interventions, resources, and related services embedded in a school week. Keith, you can go to the next slide. The message we are communicating here is that the school day environment will not be fixed throughout the 2021 school year. Holding school during a public health crisis means we have to have options for teaching across a continuum of learning environments. We anticipate moving between these learning environments based on the DuPage County Health Department and other government agencies. Instruction, as well as our current safety and security of our own school building, will cause us to move between the hybrid, in-person, and remote. An example of such thing might be a student and or staff contracting COVID-19. Arwen, let me turn it back to you.
So just in recognition that schools provide holistic services, so we've just kind of laid out possible options for what it would look like academically, and we just want to know that our co-curriculars are as a part of who we are as our academics. So this slide is walking just through where we're at in terms of IHSA athletics, and essentially our athletic directors and team of coaches have their own kind of version of our academic team, and they've been working on a return to play plan for District 86 in consultation with all of DuPage County. And so essentially it just kind of walks through what that plan looks like. It is not implemented yet. Once we get there though, their plan is close to being ready, and it just kind of walks through all of the different things that are in play for athletics, and it does mirror very closely what we're doing with academics. You can go to the next slide. So just next steps. Is we're continuing, like Superintendent Prentice said, awaiting from further guidance from government groups, specifically the Illinois Department of Public Health. We will have those ongoing recovery, revitalizations, and restored committee meetings to make sure that all of our group of employee stakeholders are on board with our plan. We do plan to present some more detailed plans at the July 9th PTAC to kind of run PTAC through some ideas that our team is currently in the process of finalizing for remote 2.0, hybrid, and in-person instruction. We'll then present that final plan. I always say hopefully because it is such a fluid process, but our plan is to present our recommended final plan on July 23rd in preparation for that first day of school. And we are here. Any questions?
So, where do I start? So I foresee we could ask you about 1,000 questions, and respectfully, the answer are going to be that you just don't know yet. So I'm going to not ask of, what do you do in the cafeteria? What about the auditorium? What about, one ways or, so I'm not going to do, but thank you for doing this. I think a couple of these slides could go out on mass media because we had a couple emails come in and said, what are you doing? And I know, I don't want to speak for the board, you guys are doing a lot, and let's just get a blurb out, especially, I think, with Prentice and everybody who's doing it, the collaboration with others, because there could be some wild idea that comes out of Naperville Central that nobody's thinking about, that somebody hears, and all of a sudden, voila, it could be a remedy to a cafeteria, which no one right now has a remedy to how you deal with cafeteria. So I commend you for that and keep that up. And this board member will just kind of have to wait. And if anybody has all the answers, come tell us, because I know that nobody does now.
No, and I can tell you that for our standing Friday meeting, Karen from the DuPage County Health asked for our questions ahead of time so that they could prepare it herself and two other colleagues. And so my one is that one, because that 50 rule makes no logical sense to me for a high school campus. And so if you look at the guidelines that are released for businesses and restaurants that go into phase tomorrow, they talk about capacity. And so I asked both buildings already, could you please tell me what your capacity is in your cafeteria? Because so my question here was pushing it. Please help me understand how a high school campus cafeteria is not similar to going to in-place dining. Right. And so because that will impact what we could possibly come back to you in July 23rd. So if we are unable to work with DuPage County Health Department around that notion and that restriction to say, I believe a cafeteria should be looked at very differently and needs to be looked at as in-person dining, that could be a game changer for what we could say that we could possibly do if we are unable to feed the students during the day. That makes it a significant challenge for us. That's just one example, but she is joining us at our 12 o'clock on Friday. So I hope to get at least her initial feedback on some of those types of things that we need answers on.
No, that's great. I would be remiss again. Cotter Consulting, thanks. They have a different view. They're interacting with different spectrums of education, so they bring and I commend them for giving their services to us complimentary. So thanks, Cotter.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump on. I'm so enamored with being in person, so I can actually see people, and I know it's like, oh, I can talk now. Wait a second, he's not through. So I apologize for jumping on you. Forget it. I'm just not used to these in-person experiences. I like the idea of putting out something that's not overly detailed, but basically to calm our community to know that we can't give you a comprehensive plan because this is very fluid, but also letting them know that you're working with the other DuPage, just exactly what Marty was saying, and in very close consultation with the DuPage Health, and that you have regular meetings and that you're all working together to solve the problems, just something like that. And I think that will go a long way, because everyone, it really is on the edge of their seats. And there's a lot of people who think they have the solutions, and we just need to let them know there are no simple solutions, so I think that would be good.
I think it's important for community members to realize what they may do individually for their children, or what I might do for my 3 children at South is not what I may necessarily do as a board member acting on behalf of 4,000 students, another 1,000 or 1,200 staff and support. As Arwen noted, the primary guidance is health and safety of the students, and it's difficult because we've now gotten to the point where there's a split among medical experts, and depending upon which ones you listen to, the most universal constant, and I've gotten several questions from community members on this, is are the masks staying? And that's the thing I'm most comfortable saying yes. If we are back in classroom in person, the students and staff are going to have masks. The other components are, as you point out, are still fluid. So that's, again, I've used this example a number of times. We can't be in a ready, fire, aim mode. We need to make sure that all the health precautions are taken care of. We have students and staff that have autoimmune diseases, other concerns that we have to be sensitive to. So this is not going to be a one-size-fits-all return either. The community needs to be aware of that because we've been receiving questions on that regard. Is it possible to put something on the webpage, to Marty's point, or maybe we put the slide deck up, and as we get, I know we're doing emails and other things, but maybe the web page becomes a repository for updates as they come through. And I would also ask, I didn't hear it, but honestly, I may have missed it. In addition to the re-entry committee, is it possible to have PTAC work to a degree? And are they already on the re-entry, or?
Of some of the staff members, yes.
Okay, so I see Arwen nodding. I think it could be helpful to utilize the parents, because they're in the community, they can relay things as well, and we can get additional concerns as they come through.
Yes, at our July 9th PTAC meeting, it is our, we have many things on the agenda, but I would say that's the largest piece of the agenda, is to present some of the detailed plans once our committee has those ready, and kind of bounce them off PTAC and get feedback of pros and cons of what we're initially thinking.
As Tammy and I discussed today, within the confines of Open Meetings Act, we are fortunate to have a lot of resources available to us in the district, including physicians, actually more than several, a significant number who have offered, for lack of a better term, to consult, and I would encourage, and I know Tammy, you're intending on doing that, utilize whatever resources we have available to us. The biggest ally, in my opinion, one board member that we have at the moment it's actually joint with the ROE and the DuPage County Public Health Department. Not to throw shade, as the kids say, at the State Department of Health, but the county department has been significantly further ahead. And as I've communicated with Tammy, when it comes to final decision making, that's going to carry significant weight, at least for this board member, is what our local health department is recommending. Because as Tammy noted, much of the state guidelines are, quote, as possible, close quote. And I'm not comfortable subjecting students and staff to as possible. We need to have a better sense of that. So any other board members have questions or comments?
Just one additional one, and I think it's noted that there's 2 things to it. Unlike when we talk about student safety and it might be an active shooter, everybody's kind of the same. Here, I think we have to be conscious that certain students might have a certain health condition that are unique to them. Nobody, for the sense of it, is unique to an active shooter. We have the plans, and everybody is kind of the same for all intents and purposes. So we have to be.
But we do have a process for that. It's no different. This is a health pandemic, so students who have.
Right.
We already have a system in place to deal with.
Because we got a couple of those notes, and I want to just make sure that the parents with that does affect that unique individual that we're addressing it. And it leads, and I don't want to get a bunch of hypotheticals, but from a tech perspective, somebody let us know that, is it able to, for a class to be filmed and then delivered? So not only via a WebEx where the teacher's in front of us, but I know we're pulling a lot of cable. I don't know if the rooms are set up, and I don't need an answer. Just thinking, if there's a subset of kids that parents aren't comfortable, or for some reasons they do stay home, and it could be a hybrid,
No,
like a hybrid too.
Part of there's 3 tiers to our committee. One of that, shockingly, Keith and Dave Lapatino are on, but it's the instructional technology and PD. And so one of the evaluations that we're going through, we use several different platforms during remote, and the group came to consensus that we were going to go to Zoom and a higher level of Zoom that does allow for recording, and so for a variety of reasons. And so certainly if we may be in some version of InFace, but there may be other students. It will be case by case. We have other tools, something called Edgenuity, that is full courses online, and we've aligned them to our district curriculum. And so to me, it will very much be case by case for different student situations, because no 2 students are the same in terms of their learning style.
Tammy, I know, again, within the confines of the OMA, you and I have discussed transition center, special needs students, and other things.
Yes.
How that's both literally and figuratively much more hands-on. How are we accommodating those sorts of programs?
Good question. We too they've been patiently waiting for these guidance, but I speak with Tina Kinsey. She is the department chair. I speak with her regularly. She joined our committee a couple meetings ago. We started reaching out to all of our business partnerships. We have over 50 business partnerships to see their comfort level of having our staff and students return, knowing that the state is moving to phase 4 from a business perspective. We just spoke last week, and as they're making their connections, the call is overwhelmingly positive, that they feel very comfortable with PPE, that we could continue to have those sites. So because of that, I would almost call it a group C. So some of our students who would benefit from the most from being on campus to get access to those pieces, even if parts of the building are remote. There may be some students at both high schools as well, students who have significant learning challenges can come to school every day. And so we are kind of creating a group C that may be on a different schedule pattern than other students. But Transition Center itself will make some decisions. They may be looking very different than the high school campuses because they can. But the very encouraging piece is our businesses are working with us in partnership and plan to work with us and allow that process to continue, which was wonderful.
On the other end, and maybe you had mentioned this, for the students who may benefit from being in person through this, how about the students who may need to be at home the entire time? Is that another group?
Yes, so that will be a process that will have to go through a medical piece. And so we definitely, there's over 500 students with IEPs. There are over 300 students with 504s. 504s will sometimes have an impact depending on the learning environment, and so that challenge may only be in a large setting, and so it will definitely be case by case as to how that is handled. And so yes, we would absolutely align with whatever that individual student needed.
The number, and I forget exactly what the terminology is, about 50 people per room. What are we talking about there? I mean, how does that translate into this environment?
Literally today, if today was August, the first day of school, that would be a challenge for us, because that means our students could not have lunch, because we would have to start school at 3 in the morning, I think, then, to have that many lunch periods, because it's suggesting you can only have 50 people in a meeting space. And so that's been my pushback to the health department, that I think they need to in my opinion, a shortcoming of the guidance, because I think they needed to consider cafeterias not as a classroom space or instructional space, and they were silent on it. It just kept everything is 50 for public school. Whereas if you look at the business guidelines and restaurant guidelines, it's specific to capacity, and there's an asterisk by it, and the current baseline is 25%. And so that gives us way more options if we can consider that approach versus this 50 cap.
So in the 50 per room, is a classroom a room? So you could have 50 people in a classroom, but you couldn't have 50 people here?
You could have tops 50 here, so you can't. Then we couldn't have a full school day.
Isn't 50 a huge number for most classrooms? I mean,
well, I think that, like, if you think of a lecture hall, theater, auditoriums, band room.
But they're not saying per square foot or like we're talking about. It's just 50 per room.
No, 50.
So the janitor's closet, we could put 50 people in that room.
That is correct.
Okay.
You understand our
It's not based on capacity. That's the problem. It's not a percentage of capacity for schools. It is a max of 50 in a meeting space, and a meeting space is defined as an area with walls.
Yeah, and I know Keith is not being facetious. This is the problem, and this is why the public needs to understand. Tuesday didn't end the concerns that we have for the fall. They frankly only created more concerns in some regards, and this is what we're going to need to work through, and it's going to take a while, and that's why I'm asking the community, bear with us. We're not able to make a knee-jerk decision and say, that's it, everybody's back in the classroom come whatever the start date is.
Another really good example, just to show the challenge with that guidance document, if you go to the section that talks about contact tracing. So this is a high school. So a student perhaps got on a bus with a mask and was around all of those. In theory, perhaps they took their temperature at home, life was good. If at some point during the day they became ill, whatever, and it turned out that they're COVID positive, if you read the way the language is written that is supposed to happen, it would be absolutely impossible to do contact tracing in a high school setting, because that student has been on a bus. That student was up and down how many hallways around so many people in how many different classrooms. And so those are the limitations, and that's the piece we need to work with DuPage County Health. So I need to know if Downers Grove North has 1 kid, 5 kids, 10 kids, R1 has 10, like at what point is it considered unsafe? Or is it the fact that if you look at IDPHs, they are now believing that if you are in less than 6 feet with someone who is not with a mask for 15 minutes or longer, that's when they're saying that's when the worry happens. Well, if all of our students are adhering to masks, then we're probably okay. And even if someone did get positive, but we all had masks on, we might still be okay. But again, it's a health pandemic, so I need the county health department to tell me when a teacher or a staff member or a student tests positive, if we are all adhering to face masks, probably going to be okay and could continue to have school. Last March, they would have shut us down. And so that's why we really need that guidance, and we need to communicate that to our parents, because maybe South stays open, but Central has to shut down. And so it's just really, those are the things that we really need very clear direction, and DuPage County superintendents want us all to be on the same page.
As you guys are going through the planning and we're getting closer to more of the recommendation coming in July, how have the plans started to make budget ripples that we may need to take into account?
Several significant. So let's just say we get an answer on that 50 rule around feeding students. Without a doubt, you will read through the guidance document the importance of sanitization regularly. Josh and I have spoken several times. I'm going to need a few more GSF people here during the day. And so we're going to need bathroom attendants. It's pretty clear we're going to need bathroom attendants and lunch. And obviously we're going to have other spaces for lunch. So even if it was a capacity space, we're going to have to take over other spaces to have lunch, but then you're going to need the manpower to use the approved disinfectant on the tables and wipe down in between the sessions, so it can impact passing period. There's many things, but at a minimum, the cleaning and sanitization. The other concern is, just as students have individual health concerns, there will be a process around personnel. So we may have teachers, for a variety of reasons, or other staff roles that meet the criteria that they are unable to be in person, and so we're going to have to go through that process. So there could be the need to find other teachers to do in-face instruction. So, could be significant cost. For sure, personnel will be a significant cost. Currently, right now, we received $266,000 in grant money through the CARES Act. We are using all of that for all the purchase of PPE currently.
And that's the Don Rumsfeld, the things we don't know that we don't. I mean, there's so much that's contingent upon the guidelines and what happens. The reality is, spoiler alert, there's not enough money to accommodate all the things that we are probably going to have to deal with. We'll deal with it as we move forward, but it's what you and I have talked about in finance, and it's what I know other board members have been asking. We don't know because we're not sure what we're going to have to do yet, and that's why the budgeting process has been, Josh's white whale. I mean, it's every day we're asking him, how do you refine it? How do you refine it? How do you refine it? So white whale's a reference to Moby Dick, Marty. Just so we're all on the same page. Other questions? Thank you. As some community members have suggested, even communicating we don't know is better than no communication, and I know the district has been very good about that, so I would encourage us to keep that up. Moving on to the business agenda, Mr. Stevenson, any comments on the Treasury and financial reports?
I do not have any comments, but I'll take any questions.
I do. On slide number 10 of the Treasury report, what happened with the self-insurance? We were trending nicely down until 20, and now we're increasing upward with self-insurance costs. What's going on? misreading the chart. The equity balance, is that the red line? That's actually increasing, so that's what we want to increase? You can say yes here.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I thought that was the cost because it was red, you know, like green would be equity, red would be expense, never mind. Any other board member questions on the reporting? Hearing none. Madam Secretary, would you like to put your FOIA officer hat on, please?
We had 8 FOIA requests since the last Board of Education meeting that we processed and provided answers to. We received requests in human resources, purchasing, academics, and general Board of Ed request areas, including requests for facilities invoices, legal invoices, racial comments, racial equity, lesson plans, and settlement agreements. 8 is about in the middle of the pack for our trend over the last number of years. Our costs, our legal fees associated with FOIAs had began to trend down as some issues were resolved, and that should continue to stay a little lower as those issues are resolved, but we're still waiting for the last 2 May and June legal fees to see our final trend for the year.
Board members have any comments? Hearing none, the board operational calendar is linked and provides a roadmap of agenda items to come to the board. On that topic, would any member of the board like to propose an agenda item for a future meeting? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion held, second Turek. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, 6-0, motion carries. Good night, folks. Thanks for attending.